Then we'll open up to questions and answers. That way we don't get into the debates and all that. I wish I would have done that earlier. Anyway, enough said. Dave, one thing while we're here and we're on air, before we forget, Tom had reminded me that you might want to just let everybody know that today the Brush Center is open for the next couple,
Yeah, I'll remind it.
Can you do that to start us off when you first, just to let everybody know that the town's going to keep it open for brush from the storm and all that happy stuff?
It's going to be open 2 more weekends after this weekend, next weekend, and then December 3rd is the final weekend. Brush only.
Brush only, I was going to say, make sure you're specific, because people are
right.
going to think that,
Yeah, brush only.
And reminder, what's the max diameter of the brush?
6 inches is the maximum diameter.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. So, Janos, your floor.
Dave told me that I'll be before noon, so I didn't bring anything with a little bit spicy stuff, so but at least these one, I could butter you up a little bit with this one. So, you pass along. Going back to the regular chocolate, not with alcohol, but we got none with somewhere, anywhere.
Was that Spike?
Yeah, this is not spicy or anything, yeah. I don't know, so year 13, maybe we should kind of skip and go to, because I'm superstitious, so go to 14. Right away, just
Probably a good idea.
Good, I just set my alarm for 15 minutes.
What I told Sean was 5 minutes by 15 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I dropped the one.
For
My
the
bad.
record, so divided it by 3. But I think I'll be able to squeeze it in 15 minutes. Let's start it. Our organization of our department did not change. It's still the same. We have 3 divisions, and we still have 2 vacant positions in the department, and we are not proposing to fill them at this time. Our responsibilities stay the same. We are responsible for maintaining roadway and other infrastructures in town. We are providing technical and engineering support. We are building and maintaining sewer infrastructure, and we also manage collection and disposal of solid waste, and helping anybody else. That's still our Now, what I always do, I start with smaller divisions, and just as kind of the quickest way to go through them and who the divisions they have the least changes. So environmental division has two sections, solid waste and recycling, and sanitary sewers. So let's start with solid waste. Budget in 2012 was 1.899401. For 2013, a slight increase, and this increase is only due to the fuel surcharge. The rest is pretty much stayed the same. If you look at the next slide, you will see that the recycling per hour contract is the same cost. It's a fixed cost of $408,000 for collection. For solid waste for collection is the same, $614,000 per ton. Price is the same, and you see the difference in fuel adjustment. Their contract was signed with a formula, and we have to follow that formula. So obviously we know that the fuel went up. If in fiscal year 11, our adjustment was $39,000, so it's substantial, and fuel went still up. Unless the fuel will drop down, then this number could be lower. For solid waste for items, as you could see, they are the first few were inputted by finance department. That's salaries and benefits. The next big one is collection system for waste. It's increased, and it's increased slightly because we're offsetting the fuel adjustment with the reduction of tonnage. So you don't see such a big increase in that for the fuel adjustment. Where in recycling, because it's fixed price, you see the increase in a fuel. That's why that number jumped higher. Certification prices went up, and dues, and everybody who is working in a drop-off center has to be certified, and so that price went up. And we also decreased one item, which is a postage, because all the newsletters is online. So this is a very small increase. So that's basically for solid waste and recycling. Sanitary sewers, for this next division, this budget last year was $4,500,000. $79,758. No, I did not reduce by $1.5 million because that $1.87 million was allocated for 50% of the grant for sewer to be constructed for the Penninger Road project. So that money is still there sitting on the books, but we don't have to put this in 2013. But even if you compare budget itself, you see the increase. And I want to stress that sanitary sewer is fully supported by tax rates, not tax, but sewer rates. So this is an enterprise fund that is being supported by the sewer rates, not by taxes. There are no changes in our sewer system. There's still 40 miles of sewers, 5 pumping stations, and we are pretty much the same with the services, residential, commercial, and industrial. For this first slide, you will see the contractual items slightly even dropped down due to, I think, the insurance went down. This was, again, benefits and the salaries put in by Finance Department. Now, the non-increase items from legal services to the miscellaneous are identical as we had last year, so the $110,000 approximately stayed the same for those several items. Now we have some decrease items. For sewer maintenance and repairs, we decrease a little bit. We have to comply with the CMOC permit, and we have to maintain and televise TV the system. We have a little bit more efficient way of TVing the system by zooming with telephoto lenses from manholes to manholes. That saves us, gives us knowledge that which ones don't have to be fully TV'd, and we don't have to send the camera and clean, so it's a little bit less expensive. Bob Carey, who is our new environmental engineer, is very familiar with this method from the previous work, so we employed it here, and it works very well, so we reduced that price. The sewer transfer to general fund, this is to pay the bond from the previous construction of the sewer, and that went down a little bit, so that number is from sewer, so you see, that's why you see decrease. But we also have increases. Now, sewer maintenance, sewer management services went up, and this is for to comply with CMOC requirements. We also have to finalize the design of the pumping station on Plaza 28, and we are finalizing the intermunicipal agreement with the City of Manchester. We are revising the City of Manchester is revising, and they want this to be in place in January of next year. And obviously we'll come back to introduce you to this agreement, and but that's where we need the more money for the management services. Sewer usage services went up. This is Manchester is increasing their rates, the way they are calculating for disposing the sewer. We are on a hook with the new agreement. We'll be on a hook for 10%. So that is next item is going up, because that item will cover that $78 million that Manchester will spend on improving a treatment plant. And we'll be on a hook for 10% of that. That's over the period of years. And there was always any improvements that they did, we have to pay our share. Office supplies, we increased slightly because with those CMOC requirements, we have to send a lot of reports, and all the binders are not cheap. These are pretty thick binders, so we need to send all those reports and the data to them. The last one, self-explanatory. We all know that the fuel went up. That's pretty much closes the sanitary sewers. Now the next division is highway, and last year budget was 1.267882. It's a slight increase, and I will explain what increases we have in this budget. Contractual items. You can see they were inputted by Finance Department, and that took approximately $1.6 million out of this budget. That there's not very much can be done. There's a slight increase in uniforms here. We had to comply with the new Federal Highway Administration requirements for the new uniforms, reflectorized C2 class, so that item had to be increased. The rest non-increase items is another almost $1 million that stayed the same as last year, from paying for electricity. I didn't increase snow removal. I left all the items. what we had last year. Again, praying again for good winter, that I didn't increase for salt. I left it the same thing. You know, if we can make it, fine. If not, I will have to, you know, just dig out in some other item. But right now, hopefully that $220,000 might be enough. I want to point out that I left it also zero in for highway reconstruction, because we are proposing to put an article for bond for the roads, and I want to stress that there's no backup article, and with a new charter, there probably will never be opportunity to have a backup article. This year we didn't have a backup. I'm hoping again that residents will vote for the bond. We reduced the item for highway street lighting by $5,000. With the new efficient bulbs, we noticed that that probably should be sufficient amount of money, so we have reduction. So it was worth to replace those bulbs. Steve, you know, did this for from the grant money, and then we can reduce this. Now, we also have increases. Now, increases are because these are the actual real numbers, that instead trying always kind of fool ourselves and not put a real number, and then I have to try to look and cut some other items. Let's just be honest with each other and put what belongs where. Highway department supplies, we ran for so many years on a default budget. The shelves are empty. There's no screws, bolts, and, you know, and the welding rods. We are short. We are overrunning that number. We really need around $30,000. I think last year was over $30,000 that we spent. So I'm putting the slight increase in this $30,000. Highway gravel, we have from our road construction. When we reconstruct the road, we get a lot of material like old pavement and gravel that we can pulverize, we can grind and use for our shoulders. To do this, we have huge stockpile of material over there that we can save a lot of money by using them, but now it costs us $17,000 to get a portable crusher and crush that material. And so definitely we have to increase that item. Sand, this is winter sand. And when you look at the average for every year, how much we're doing, spending for sand, $30,000 is not enough. We never spend that much.
Would it be
It was
better if
always
you got
over.
summer sand?
Yeah, that's winter sand right now.
Sorry.
Now, for gasoline, you know, the item's called gasoline, but that's for fuel. If you will look at the statistics going back to the next slide, what we spend for fuel, we always spend easily over 20,000 gallons. And looking at the prices right now, the fuel dropped a little bit less than 3.8. I think it's 3.6, and then, you know, it varies a little bit. But again, we are projecting for 13. So the realistic number is $70,000. Putting back in a budget somewhere around $40,000, it's unrealistic. We will always run over that number. So just let's put that what belongs there. Now I increased the highway cleaning and maintenance. And if you will look at the slide, what we are getting from the state. From the state, we are getting in a form funds from a state block grant. Last year we got $600,000, but this year is going to be reduced because the surcharge to the registration was repealed, so probably $80,000 will be less. But we are getting good $500,000 or $520,000 from the state. Historically, we always put that money under the line items maintenance, because that's for our maintenance. That's what they're giving us. Now, when you subtract from shim and over from that amount of money for the guardrail repair, crack sealing, striping, ditch cleaning, and tree trimming, doesn't leave that much for shim and overlay, just pavement itself. And so when you look, we should be overlaying roads to keep, you know, in a decent shape every 12 years, just because pavement oxidizes and becomes brittle. If I have this $500,000 and I will spend for striping and what I mentioned, that $80,000, so I have only $420,000 left. So that gives me only for 2.5 miles or 2.6 miles a year to shim and overlay. That puts us in 69-year cycle of maintaining the roads. And I will show you the road that is 37-year cycle, a little bit down in the picture. So keep that in mind, that we are right now budgeting for 69 if we are only putting that 500,000. But we still, even with that limited amount of money, we were able to, last year, we overlaid Barton, Golden, Karen, Mohawk, Reed. We just did that neighborhood. It was deteriorating to the point that it was still in a good shape just to do it an overlay. We'll wait a little bit longer, it will cost us more. But several roads over there in that neighborhood required more of an intensive reconstruction. So we did Boulder, Granite, Meadow, Mohawk, and Sandstone Circle. We grinded and we reconstructed. We did some improvement to some culverts and drainage system. Now, the line item, you will see again that for road reconstruction, I left it 0 as we had last year. I didn't put any, they didn't let me put any more. I wanted to put some money in case the bond fails, but no. So again, let's pray that, you know, Tom gave me some heads up that he might not like this.
Time's up, Janos.
Now you can look at the pictures without me talking. I could be quiet. Now, this is
I couldn't resist.
okay, I'm glad you did it. So
Well
it's just
done.
like, you know, those politicians, you know, at the debate, I would just fizzle out a little bit, you know. This is the road that was 37-year maintenance cycle. And we are now,
Looks like cobblestones.
that's what it is. So that was Sandstone Circle. You see the picture how we reconstructed. Then you see Mohawk, you see a meadow, and what we are proposing to do for next year, Auburn, section of Auburn, Litchfield, and Stokes. That's it, done. So that's the half a minute I went over with, for the pictures only. But you see, because I was talking about the 13 and talk about chocolates, that didn't count as a budget.
That's it, we gotta credit you, we gotta credit you.
All right, so we have Janos's proposal in front of us. We'll start with the council. John?
Janos, on your gasoline slide,
Yep.
it appears you dramatically reduced the amount of gallons that you're using. How did you do that?
I did not reduce the gallons. I used the price, current price, and I said that's the amount of, if the price is $3.80, that's the only thing I'll be able to buy. So I'm pointing out that if the price will be as high, I don't have enough. So even 70,000 is not enough. So I just wanted to point out to you, I'm not exaggerating, trying to build up the number. What Dave was, $70,000, because I was asking a little bit more, and Dave, I think, cut to 70,000 because he was using price of 3.6 or 3.5 for fuel, which was just the last invoice. We were using, I think, May prices of this year, and fuel went down a little bit.
So if I can clarify, in 2008 you had 25,000, in 2011 you had 21,000. I'm trying to compliment you.
Yeah,
It's-
no, I can't. No,
What did you do?
we didn't get. You see, the amount of fuel depends how many storms we get. So this is just varies. If we it's not like we're driving around the same amount of time. Depends on the winter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tom?
Question for Dave, the 1.875 million for sewer at Pettingill. Now, is that money fenced off now?
It is. It's currently encumbered. That's correct.
And is that reduce the 12 plus or minus number?
Yeah, it does, Tom. That 1.875 represents 50% of the sewer cost, which would be the local match for the EDA grant if we were successful. So if we're successful with that grant, you can pull off about 3.75 million off the 12.3.
So when we were talking earlier in the meeting about what the cost of Pettingill Road would be to the tax rate, that's not including the money that's fenced off for sewer now or a potential grant for the other half of that sewer.
Now, the money we talked about presumed no outside grants or funding, all locally paid for.
Okay.
Right.
Second question I had, these freak storms that we have, like the one with this snow October storm we just had, I can't say it, but this most recent storm, they seem to happen
More often.
every 2 or 3 years, I guess. You know, ice storm like we just had, which results in this brush dilemma for a lot of folks. Given a frequency of once every 2 or 3 years, if the council were to establish a policy that the town would help, I know right now we clean up the town right of way along the edge of
Only
the
from the
road.
town right away, yeah.
If we were to be a little more liberal in our approach there and helped, I mean, not everybody is 40 years old with a pickup truck. So if we were a little more generous in helping once every 2 to 3 years, and if the council made that policy, what additional pressure would that put on your budget at that
Huge.
frequency?
This could be huge. From other towns in the past that that we know tried to do that, it took months, weeks to clean up. All of a sudden, it became a private property cleanup from the backyards. It wasn't just only from the storm. And I think they've probably had some experience in the past from the ice storms that it could go in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of cleanup. Because
Per event? You're talking about
now
per
we
event?
can't do our work, even for 180 miles of what we have right now to clean from right of way. It's going to take days and days. And then trying to hire the contractors to do that and with the chippers and clean that up, it could go to a huge amount of money.
I drove by this morning, and they were coming down Adams Road. It was town crew, bunch of Asplin trucks going around and cleaning. So they're even working today.
Oh, yeah, they work, like, in our town hall, we are working all because of hazardous waste, so John and Bob is over there, and Don I'm here, so, like,
I guess
but the highway crews are
The
working.
nature of my question is that I'm sympathetic to, we have an aging demographic in town, and we have these freak storms, and a lot of people are kind of left, they don't know what to do, they don't have the facilities or the physical strength to take care of these these freak situations, and many neighbors are generous and help each other, but I guess I'm sympathetic to how do we reach out to the community and help, and I don't want to bust the budget, I'm-
With 11 people that we have on the highway, we'll not be able to do this kind of cleanup coming from the backyards and bringing all the stuff, so we'll have to hire the contractors. So to us, we can manage doing this, but it will cost a lot of money. And I know that a lot of money would be spent on that kind of cleanup.
All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Janos was only interrupted by the buzzer there. He was going to tell him that I told him a few minutes ago that I'm not going to be supporting the road bond because
Have another chocolate.
Nah.
Maybe I have. Did they bring the wrong chocolates?
Well, I think we got to face the fact that, we're into the 6th year of the road bond now, and as soon as we hit 10 years on that, we're going to be paying mostly interest for that going forward. I think we need to address this now and start putting an appropriate amount of money into Janos's budget and start bonding repairs. And I brought this to Dave's attention about a week ago, and I said, and frankly, we got another problem facing us. We may not have a choice in this thing because there's a $551,000 spread between default and the proposed budget. And unless we close that gap, there's a very good likelihood the voters are going to take the decision right out from under us and say it's the default budget. So that's why I asked Dave, I said, you've got to have a plan, I imagine, a backup plan. What would you do if, tomorrow the default budget's passed? Where are you going to come up with $551,000?
We're currently looking at that.
Yeah, and what I suggested to him is we could perhaps put $200,000 into Janos's budget, add the $48,000 in addition that the bond costs we usually pull out of the UFB. They give him about $250,000 for repairs, take Article 4 out of the picture. I know it's not what Janos is looking at, and then we have to, with Dave's, suggestions, maybe look at closing that gap, which would be about $750,000, and finding some way of doing that, because I think the voters are gonna just take the decision out of our hands.
I would not have a problem if the 1 million would be in a budget, but instead of 1 million, or hoping that I'll get 1 million from voters and put only 250, it's just token for road construction.
I realize that,
So-
but the following years, going forward, the debt service is on a $1 million
I-
bond is about $140, so you'd gradually build up.
I would like, I think, sooner or later, I think we'll have to, what you're proposing to do in this kind of, pattern. That will, but at least finish the CIP, that we have that bond, and then if it was the $6 million or whatever, just let's try to, to finish that, and then see how we could, work it out with some other way, budgeting the road reconstruction line, instead of borrowing only. If it would be my choice, I would prefer to have that $15 million bond many years ago, and then have a nice program that I could, do. But we're doing 1 year at a time. So far, it works, and I'm able to do quite a bit of work stretching that amount of money. But don't forget, when you look at the list of the road that need reconstruction, it's like $19 million worth of reconstruction. And so $1 million is still a token. Cutting this to $250 is just...
My fear is that that's a very good and logical argument, and it applies to this year, and it applies to the next 3 years as well. And the problem is, after the third year of this, we're now paying basically $1 million in debt service, and we'll be doing that forever, because as one new bond comes on, one bond goes off, and we'll never get off the cycle. I would rather start doing
Building up
now, and I
the
know there's a transition here, but eventually, $1 million is what you need, I guess, to do repairs a year. I would rather see that coming out of the operating budget. And, the fact is, we gotta make the tough decision now. Or if we don't do it, we're gonna be putting it off like the state governments do and the federal government does, and now the world does. And eventually, we all go bankrupt. I mean, the problem is, it's compounding interest and it's debt, and it just doesn't stop. You gotta make the cut at some point, and the earlier you do it, as hard as it is, it's gonna be less painful than if we do it 2 years from now.
All right, so Tom, to partially address that, 6 years ago, the CIP committee came up with the idea of saying, what we really should be incorporating in this plan is that we should still have a CIP, but we should only be recommending bonds as bonds fall off. And that came about 6 years ago. That discussion has taken place every year for the last 6 years. And every year, the CIP committee is told the same thing. It's a policy decision by the budget committee and the town council. And that if we're going to take on the conversation that you're taking on, I think it's more specific than just roads. I think it's more along the lines of that we have to look at what we bond and take into consideration what the CIP committee's been saying for 6 years. Maybe we need to go, you don't bond until something rolls off.
No, I
mean,
think that's...
so just take another
yeah,
step.
No, I agree. But I think we gotta start here, I think, or start somewhere, and I'd suggest we start here.
We can start some other department then.
So I think it's a better discussion, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a good discussion, yeah.
It is. So from, Mr. Chairman, from a policy standpoint, then, how do we go to the voters? I mean, what Tom just said made a lot of sense from a financial standpoint, but I don't know, Giannis, if you could put Sandstone Circle back up on the screen for those that are watching at home. I have a problem with the investment that we've made over the course of the very many years that we've started paving roads going to waste as well. So there's a really, really fine line that you have to cross. So what do we, I mean, we don't want to go bonding, so what do? Do we let all our roads go here? Because earlier we talked about, be careful what you ask for. You know, I said that clearly, when representatives got up, I said, if you don't want your road to look like this, you gotta spend money. Otherwise, we have to figure out a way of raising the money. So,
If I can add to it, if you wait, that cost is much higher than the interest, because the road, reconstructing road like that is 4 or 5 times more expensive than maintaining road, and it's still in decent shape.
so just to finish, bonding's definitely not the way.
No,
But
no,
what is the way?
What I would suggest essentially is, take $1 million, and that's out of Janos's budget, $1 million has to pay his debt service first, and whatever he has left over. If it's $670,000, that means we should currently fund $330,000.
Yeah, so you're still getting that same money going towards
So
the
you-
roads.
no. And then in the following year, you know, if my numbers work out of that $1 million, he should be 140 less in debt service, because one bond will probably be falling off, or a year's payment falling off. So he would be at about 450, or maybe a little higher than that.
So I just checked with the money lady.
Yeah.
And we have nothing rolling, we have very little rolling off from debt service this year. The following year, we have $400,000 rolling off, which means we could bond up to $4 million and stay even.
Right. But it's not so much what it falls off, is if this bond passes in FY '13, then in FY '14, the bond payment is what, 140? So it's $140,000 we could be paying out of the current budget towards repairs instead of towards debt service. I mean, your bond basically it's just an advance of the money. So I'm just saying, I think we should be paying current expenses out of current income.
And for all these years was always, should be in the budget, should be now in the bonding, should be in the budget, and
Well,
it was going back and forth.
In all honesty, it's policy decisions that were made by those councils, including me, that may or may not have been right, but, you know, I had a long talk with Council Frida about this very issue, and it's completely logical, because, you know, it's a current expense.
And the
you know,
current expense
and the
would be
longer-
wonderful, if I have, yeah,
the longer we keep doing this, it's like, this is literally the old expression, of kicking the can down the road, because, go ahead, you can continue, you're the man
And
with a
before you,
plan.
you know, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. When I was on the budget committee, I supported doing this, because you had made the argument about if you had more money, you could do
More work.
more work that would last longer. And I agreed with that, and I agreed that people down the line should be paying some of these costs as well as the current people who live in London area. But at some point, we just gotta look at, you know, at the graph and where we start, where it intersects.
So if you would say right now that you want to increase the budget and put $1 million instead bonding, put in the budget, I have no problem. But if you would say,
That's a shock.
no, you're not, only $250,000, and I can't repair any roads, so that road that I didn't repair is gonna cost me in 2015 at least twice what maybe, because repairing road in fair condition, it costs much less than repairing road in bad condition. So that deterioration is catching up with us. The one or the other, we are paying.
But that deterioration, that cost to avoid that deterioration is no longer $1. It's now $1 and X cents for whatever the interest is.
So in other
And
words-
that's a debt we're passing on down the road.
Right, so in other words, instead of investing $1, you're really not investing $1. You're investing a lot more than that, and you're not getting $1's worth. You see what I'm saying?
But by repairing the road in the worst shape and waiting because for $250 I can't do anything. So I have to wait until I'll get enough money to do this $1 million worth of repair. That's, say, gonna go 4 or 5 years, and now cost me 3 times more than 3 years before. So, I know that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, a couple things. One is, we looked at that analysis a couple of years ago. We'll take it out and freshen with new numbers, but, you know, there's a bunch of policy issues here. At some point, you don't go from replacing $1 million bond, $1 million road. It's unrealistic. So at some point, 2 things will happen. You either have to raise more money off the tax rate to get to that point, or else there's going to be a couple of years at which you're not going to have as much dollars to allocate to road maintenance. It's just the way it works. The concern is, if we don't start looking at a transition, I suspect the roads will go the same way the open space bonds went in the
Will
community.
not vote.
The community, you know, the community, from my perspective, said, you know, we've allocated a lot of money towards this particular goal, and we think we've allocated enough, so ergo, we haven't had a lot of successful open space bonds going forward. But it all comes down to fiscal discipline, because if we've all been in this for a long time, you take a step back, and folks get very optimistic into the process regarding gasoline prices and road maintenance. And that's how the roads got to the bonds. Whereas folks are trying to balance the budget and says, well, let's put the bonds on the warrant and let's save ourselves $400,000 immediate impact. So as long as we maintain fiscal discipline, we can get through that trough, the transition period, which makes all the sense in the world. But and if we don't do that at some point, I'm not saying this is the year, I don't know if this is the year, that's your call, but if we don't do it at some point, the voters may make that decision for us, and then we'll have zero to put towards roads. So it's something to take a close look at. So we'll dust off that analysis and update it and see what it looks like.
So, I realize this probably would never get any traction, but I know we're elected to make these decisions, but at the same time, since we already have this article there as a bond, what if we were to take the difference between what Councilor Frida said, that we would be paying towards that bond, and the $1 million, and put that on the, for a vote?
Well, that would be about,
Yeah, we're saying it would probably fail, but you never know. I mean, you never know what will happen.
it would be a big number. I guess suggestion, let us bring back the information to the board,
Yep.
to the budget committee and the council, and
Hold
then
on a
you
second, I
can
missed
take a
something.
look.
So you want to take the $1 million bond
Yep.
and $140,000 in debt service?
You said it was 140,000 and.
No, the next year, it's probably 140,000.
What is it this year?
Well, it's 48,000.
Just
which
debt
is
service.
getting the bond.
All right, I thought it was a lot
Yeah.
more, I thought it was like
No.
2 something, all right.
Because it's the first year, yeah.
As opposed to putting it in the budget as a regular line item.
Do that as well. But the key is
You
having,
do me a favor?
sure?
Can you, it doesn't have to be today, figure out what that number would be. I mean, we might as well have it in the budget so we can look at it.
Well, that's the
That way we
analysis,
can really have a heart attack when we're looking at it.
that's the analysis I spoke of, is that we'll search for it on my
That's that,
computer,
okay.
pull it out and update it and see what it looks like.
Okay, sure.
And also, if you could, just let us know what the current debt service is, just on what the road bonds
Oh,
are.
absolutely. Oh, sure.
And Council Dolan?
Yeah, and let's not forget, it's not Yanis's issue, but there's been a policy over the last few years to, lack of a better term, rob our maintenance trust fund accounts to help balance the budget. And we're in a recovery mode now, trying to gradually bring those back up to full funding. For short-sighted budget balancing reasons, that was done. It's in the past, so we can only move forward. But, so we're also in a recovery mode there as well. So let's keep.
Everything's hitting us this year, seems like.
Well,
glad they're in.
that's gonna take, I don't think we're gonna recover in 1 year. We're gonna recover over 2 or 3 years, so, that's on our plate as well.
Sure. Also, I would like to, I don't have the slide here for the budget proposal here, but put in perspective how much we are bonding and how much other towns are bonding. With similar amount of roads, to repair the roads, like Bedford put, since 2002, $30 million, and their still roads still need more work. Derry puts, probably 18, 13, and it still needs quite a bit. So we are putting barely token with this 1 million. So thinking that, we will, we'll be all set. This is the expense that continuously needs funding, because it's always falling apart.
But that's, and we appreciate that, or at least I can speak as myself, and I'm sure the other councils would agree. We appreciate your situation. When we know that when you come to us, you want what's best for
Yeah.
you to do what's right for the town that you represent. But the other thing too is maybe they're not doing the right thing either, because they're never gonna get out of that debt service. They're gonna be paying road bonds for the next 100 years.
No, they took it was just, roads were falling apart. They had to do it. They can't just,
But I'm saying is they're doing it every year.
no, they didn't do every year. They
Okay.
did like $5 million, $8 million.
they did a
12
couple of
million.
big lump
They did the
sums?
big lump sums. They
All right.
took the big bonds.
Okay.
And we didn't think that $12 million bond will pass here, so we were doing $1 million every year. No, I always would prefer to have a $10 million bond instead,
So,
10 by 1 million.
Mr. Chairman?
Why not 50?
Yes, sir.
Just a real-world example, I just happened to think about this. I just got a new car, but the old car that I had, I work in Boston, and a lot of the streets that I roll over are exactly like this. And let me just tell you that it cost me $1,700 in 1 year to fix the suspension. And I'm just trying to, again, balance real-world numbers, and I just we just figured it out that I'm not suggesting we should put $1 million additionally in the budget, but what I'm saying, $1 million additionally in the budget would be what, $90 for a $300,000 house? Somewhere close to that?
$1 million would be.
30 cents?
30 cents on 1,000, that's 300,000.
So, yeah.
So, I'm just, to throw that out there, I mean, just to kind of start to get people thinking, we start seeing our roads like this, and you're gonna not be spending it on your tax rate, that's fine, you're gonna save a ton of money on your tax, but you're gonna
On
be
the
paying it
car
in repair
repairs.
bills. So it's real world things, I mean, that you gotta think about. I mean, you're rolling over, like I said, it's, the suspension work that I had to have done on my car was because I was rolling over roads that were smacking my car left and right, so just as a thought process. I mean.
On average, the studies were done, and I had for road management program, I had a slide, just exactly what you're showing. There was, that time, those years back, was $175 a year people were spending because of the bad road, just for the suspensions and the alignments. And so one or the other, we will pay for it.
Oh, yeah, 2 years ago, I lost a $500 rim.
Yeah.
Thanks to a
So-
pothole.
So that would fix a lot of roads, you know, and
Yeah.
Tom?
David, in our former form of government, we often would employ a tactic where we would put a bond for the voters to vote on, and if it didn't pass, we'd have a sister article at town meeting to put the operating budget money in Yanis's budget for roads. Given our new form of government, is that off the table now? Did I-
We can talk with Bart Mayer, but we've noticed that DRA has been fairly inconsistent in their rulings regarding contingent warrant articles. Under our previous form, it was easy because you knew what the previous decision was, and so you had a properly placed warrant article, but they've been a little hesitant, at least in our experience, to say, okay, if somebody votes no up here on the same ballot, can they carry that forward and vote yes or no, will have any impact? So we've got to search it out with Bart Mayer.
So again, putting trust on the voters, it's like we have to hold their hands. Why can't people just trust the voters? So if you put two of them on there, maybe one fails, maybe one passes.
You're preaching to the choir. I agree with you 100%.
You know what I mean? It's like, they're just treating people like they're stupid.
They being the state.
Sorry.
Thank
They
you.
being DRA,
Stating the obvious, yes.
Right, exactly.
not us.
No. For clarification purposes, I didn't just say us.
Dear God.
Dear God. All right. Okay, council, any other questions, or we're gonna give it to the budget committee now? Budget, okay. Anybody down here? Over here?
Sure, I'll take a
Start
step.
with Todd. Who? Yeah, I was going that way.
I mean, typical capital investment is done often through debt. And if you manage that debt to the extent that makes sense in terms of, to Councilman Frieda's point, yeah, all you're going to do is, if you're not careful, you get to a point where you're just paying all this debt load all the time. It's a valid argument. So it sounds to me like perhaps a balanced approach might be to, balance the fact that, quite frankly, you can take on debt at an unprecedented bargain rate these days. So I think we want to be cognizant of that, take advantage of bargains while we have them. However, also, I think the point should be well taken, and that is we need to really start reserving, in addition to start preparing to wean ourselves off of the need to continually take on debt. But I think to cut here and do this immediately, and it needs to be a phased approach, very carefully orchestrated, such that you take advantage of debt rates. The bond rates today are unprecedentedly low. Who knows how long that'll last? It'll probably last for a period here. But certainly, I think it would be important to start weaning ourselves from the need to make sure that we start budgeting into the operating budget, phasing in more and more to reserve, specifically for road repairs and ongoing maintenance, and then save the need for a bond issue for large, very large types of investments in our community. Who knows what that may be in the future? But that would be my input from a budget perspective, is if we can at all start adjusting the debt load while maintaining the balance, taking advantage of the interest rates that we, bargain basement pricing right now. I think it's important to not forget that while it's here. But meanwhile, reserve for the future, and start phasing into more and more reserve. But at the end of the day, I think everybody would agree that we, to let roads get to this level where it costs us 4 or 5, I don't know, 10 times the dollar amount to repair is just not fiscally being responsible in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. And that's a good point. So maybe like a maintenance trust fund for roads,
Yeah, exactly.
something to think about.
Pay one way or the other.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Mine's more just a matter of procedure, and Dave, you might be able to answer that. If it does fail, if this goes to the voters and it does fail, is there some type of contingency plan where you could have like an emergency like special meeting like before?
You can always petition Superior Court for an emergency meeting, and the response we'll get from a judge is, it's not an emergency because the voters have acted upon the appropriation, they voted no, so what's the emergency?
So you're out.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. John?
Janos, I have 3 areas. The first one is, we had a lot of discussion this morning, I don't think you were here, on Pettingill Road and some of the costs up there. Have we already expended engineering fees for Pettingill?
Yes.
And where would I see that? Whose budget? Is that in yours, or?
That would be in my budget, yeah. Not in the budget, this was article for the,
There's an article for it, so there's no line item for it?
no line item, no.
Okay,
No,
and that was last year's budget?
No, this wasn't, that was for how many years? This was 2003 or 2005, there was article was passed for engineering, and engineering's completed, it's done.
Okay, so nothing current?
No.
All right. The second is the line item that jumps out at me on the sewer budget is account 4330-000, the management services.
Yep.
And it goes across 220, then up 336, 370, 370. I know you said that there was a mnemonic there that is partly responsible for that, but can you walk me through that? Where does that money come from? Where does it go? What's the reason for that big jump we're seeing?
The big jump is for the designing of a pumping station. Just here. Plaza 28 pumping station has to be redesigned and reconstructed.
Yep.
So that's the design of pumping station. That's the biggest expense on that one,
Okay.
for the pumping station.
What else is included in there?
Just a second, I'll give you the detail.
26.
General engineering is 50,000. Impact management permit and change for the municipal agreement, 15. Inspection of and cleaning, 70,000. Overseeing the sewer repairs, $80,000 for all the cleaning, and that's a CMOC permit that we are required to clean and inspect the system. Facility plan update, $25,000, and Plaza 28 station design, $130,000. So that's $370,000.
And that comes out of where?
Sewer rates.
Out of sewer rates?
Rates, yeah.
So out of the user fee and the maintenance?
User fees, yes.
Okay.
So that's nothing comes from a tax.
And is it broken down between what comes in from user fee versus maintenance fee, or?
No, user fees is you pay for the sewer.
Right.
Rates, and that's what finances all the sewer, this division.
Okay, so this is all out of user fee?
Yes.
All right.
All of that.
And the last is, perhaps a slight criticism, is people have talked to me about doing developments and dealing with Sandtech. Do we have an exclusive that somebody who has to go through an engineering study has to go to Sandtech, or they have an option as to different approved engineering firms they can deal with?
No, we have an engineering firm that reviews as our consultant, and Stantec is our consultant. So they don't have a choice of, well, I don't like your attorney, so I'll pick up another attorney.
Right, but
because your attorney catches everything else that you brought wrong in your contract, so I wouldn't like your attorney, because I would like some weaker attorney that doesn't catch it. That's maybe criticism you're catching.
And I haven't been through the process, but there's been a couple people have said that they've been difficult to deal with. Is there a procedure?
I would take a strong objection to that kind of statement.
All right. Would there be a procedure that we had 2 engineering firms you could pick from?
To me, that
both approved by you, of course.
Yeah, I feel that.
Can I interrupt? This is more planning board than anything
Yeah.
else. I'd rather stick to the budget.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'd rather stick to the budget.
Okay. I mean, I was curious because, I mean, let me just ask you one more thing on that, if I
I
may,
don't have a
Mr. Chairman.
budget line for this here in a budget.
Right, that's paid by the applicant, but do we know how much, do we track how much
Oh, yeah.
applicants going through this process have paid to
Yeah,
Stantec?
that's all for planning department, they all tracking that, yeah.
All right,
I'd rather keep it to,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
It's not going through my budget, it's going through, but that's all detailed,
If I have questions about that, follow up with Andre?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And if you want, you can copy me, keep us in the loop if you want.
Okay, I had a question about the fee that Stantec charges too. I had some questions from constituents about that, so.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, Lisa?
Yeah, hi, I just, again, we're struggling with the highway budget and how we're going to fund this issue. I'd just like to remind people that as we're talking about being fiscally responsible and viewing all of these alternatives, including the possible loss of a warrant article, we do need to be conscious that to this point, our roads have not been a source of a great deal of stress or unhappiness in town. And if we are going to further delay repair and reconstruction of these roads, that's a situation that might change. So as we're struggling with this decision from the fiscal end, there is, as Joe pointed out, a realistic aspect on the other side, which is how hard is it going to be for you to get to work in the morning or on the roads in bad
It's a
condition.
fair statement. And Tom's point is Tom's point. We haven't discussed it, if we're going to support it or not, and that's up to the voters anyway. But one thing that I was just talking to a couple of the councilors and it may be a way to go, I don't know, but when Rich brought up the idea of like a maintenance trust fund, I mean, that may be the way to go. Maybe it gets us out of bonding, it puts money into a fund that comes out of the regular budget, starts to build up, and then Councilor Dolan had mentioned that next year we're going to have 400,000 when one of the bonds fall off. We could take that 400,000, instead of putting it into the general fund, we just put it into the maintenance trust fund for the roads. I mean, there's lots of creative ways of doing it, but one thing is we have to be smarter what we're doing, and just bonding is probably not the best way to do it. So we just need to, kind of think about it and do a better job of maintaining roads.
Great.
So, but I know what you're saying. You're right. You're 100% right. If you don't fix it, it will become an issue.
I agree 100% with what Tom's saying. My concern is at this point, if we suppose the budget committee and the council all vote against supporting the bond, but we put that money in the budget, and then as we already discussed, they vote for the default anyway.
Right.
Giannis has nothing
Either
for
way.
next year.
Yeah.
And that's my concern. So if there is some contingency that we can look into, that I think would be.
Well, maybe one of the options is this year, if the council supports it and the budget committee supports it, maybe this is the last year we bond. Maybe, at the same time, maybe we can come up with a creative of doing a maintenance trust fund. Maybe we can implement that this year, going forward. So that way the process is underway, we start doing a transition, and, wean ourselves off the bonding. So.
Actually, my suggestion to Dave was to put add 200,000 to Janos's budget, and then take another 48,000 out of the undesignated fund balance, which we typically take out to pay the bond costs, the insurance and I guess it's interest costs. So it wouldn't have a tax, well, the 200,000 would have a tax effect, and we'd have to look to see about trying to knock down the budget in other places. Because otherwise we'll have a $750,000 spread between default and. Dave's laughing.
Oh, dude, Sorry,
I wasn't laughing because I thought that was already put into sleep. Put that behind us.
So, I mean, we do, like a lot of the things that we have before us, we have a lot of issues. But, there are solutions to this stuff. We just have to seek them out, and I think we're doing that. I can tell you in all the years I've been sitting here, I don't think we've ever discussed this like that. Never really thought about it like that, but it's probably a good idea to start doing it. I mean, it's a smart way of doing it. We do it for vehicles. We do it for, the building maintenance. So, why not? It makes sense. And we're not bonding it.
And 48,000 in carrying costs to start just getting a bond, it's not insignificant, and after, 5 or 6 years, it does start to build up.
So maybe that's the way we go. So, any other questions? Okay, public, any other questions for Janos? Come on, this is the last chance.
Oh, no, it isn't.
All right, thank you, Janos, we
Thank you
appreciate you
very much.
guys coming in.
Yep, thank you.
Ah, who's this? Town manager? Ah.
5 minutes. Yeah,
5 minutes? Yeah, not likely. Yeah.
Get the timer going.
I need a break.
Set the timer.
Yeah, really, right? After 13 years of Janos giving presentations, this is the first time he's finished in under an hour. I can now retire.
You know what? I kept records from the last year, and you're so wrong.
Everyone is always wrong when it comes to Janos.
Okay.
I think what we have remaining for presentations are cable and library, so we'll try to give you a broad brush over everything else. 5? How about 7? All right, just to go over, what we want to do is hit the highlights of the budgets and which budgets have had significant variances from the current budget. The first slide is town council budget on page 27, of which there are no changes. There may be a slight change in workers' comp or something, but beyond that, there are no changes. The moderator budget on page 31 is still level funded at $300, and the budget committee still gets you $1 on page 33.
All right.
Worth every penny.
Absolutely.
Have we spent that yet?
Absolutely.
I'll donate the $1. Give
It's
me
a
a receipt.
reserve.
Next up is the town manager's budget, which is up 1%, which is about $4,000, just simply based upon changes to benefits and salaries and workers' comp costs. All other operating line items are level funded from FY '12. Our legal budget is, again, level funded at $104,500. Majority of those funds are used for $95,000 for all of our legal needs for all departments, with the exception of the sewer department, which is self-sufficient. And we also budget about $9,500 per year for collective bargaining expense. And we're expecting 2 contracts to be negotiated in FY '13. Next up is general government, and that, there are 2 changes. One significant change, as Janos just spoke of, is gasoline. We're looking for an adjustment of $72,400. We're basing our estimate upon a per gallon rate of gasoline at $3.20. There it goes, $3.25 a gallon, and diesel at $3.30 a gallon. I got it. So that'll chew us up, thank you, to what we think gas will cost moving into FY '13. Our usage has been very consistent from year to year. We consume about 50,000 gallons of gasoline and 18,000 gallons of diesel, and this consumption is all departments with the exception of the highway department. So it's police, it's fire, and it also includes the town office fleet, which obviously is a very minimal user of that overall amount. The other one is there was a request to increase or restore Old Home Day back to its $10,000 appropriation. And although we have moved some fund from one line item to the other, on a cumulative basis, the balance of the line items are all level funded from FY '12. Next up is, any questions thus far? Okay. Next up is finance and administration. And Sue will walk you through those.
The total decrease from fiscal year 12 is $41,817 or 7%. Staffing for this department includes 3 FTEs. 2 positions have been reduced to part-time, 32 hours, which is why there is such a decrease. Adjustments include salary and mandatory benefits, and again, the decreases are due to the reduction of 2 positions from full-time to part-time. Operational line items have been level funded from fiscal year 12, with the exception of the contractual services, which is our auditing fees, and our bank service fees, the only lines that have been increased. Human Resource Division, budget for HR divisions included in finance, and I provided the statistics that I typically do every year for FTEs, part-time, new hires, retirees, and terminations or separations that happened throughout fiscal year 11. Any questions on finance or HR?
Actually, I got a question. Terminations, 9. Pretty high.
Termination, separation.
That separation meaning moved on?
Yes.
Okay.
Retirements.
No, that's up there, that's 7. Okay,
Retirees are 7, yeah, these are people who've moved on.
okay.
Those aren't all forced terminations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just a quick comment, people that doing the budget, this is great to have the pages to reference. So we're just flipping around sometimes all over the place, so thank you for making it easy for us.
Assessing, it's located on page 47. Total department head increase at this point, 362,701 from the fiscal year 12 budget to 356, so it's a slight increase. Most of the lines are for benefit purposes. Operational lines are flat.
I asked Karen to include this slide in the presentation today because there's a lot of questions in the community regarding, the real estate market's not that great, so my house is maybe overassessed compared to the real estate market, so am I paying a disproportionate share of taxes? And although if there's a perfect world, the tide would lift and lower all boats, it doesn't happen that way. There's so many different variations of properties out there, but the number that I recommend people key on is a coefficient of dispersion. Although our equalization ratio is about 108%, our dispersion is under 10, which means everybody's clustered around that central point. If they're out here, you'd have a lot of disparities, but since they're clustered close together, we still have our proportionality in assessments. Our folks still go out and review 20% of the properties a year to make sure our data is fresh. They also visit all properties in which there's been a property transaction and make sure we understand what people are buying and what they're paying for. And under the state law, which has changed, probably close to 10 years now, we're required to perform a formal update, and our next scheduled update is 2014, of which I think we have to be between 95 and 105? 90 and 110. So just to give you an idea of where we are. So if you have any questions about the disproportionality, this is just a broad brush to give you a sense that we're still in pretty good shape.
But Dave, let me say it in a different way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were to do a townwide assessment, and that's pretty expensive, that's, I think, last time we checked, it was probably about a $700,000 expense to do a townwide assessment.
Right.
If we were to do a townwide assessment, reassessment, and lower most people's assessment to market level, and people's property values be reassessed down, then the corresponding tax rate would come up.
Right.
And the net tax bill would be the same.
That's correct.
So we could go out and spend $700,000 as a community and fix this issue and have no change in the tax rate, except the tax rate may go up a little bit more to pay for the $700,000 that we just. So I think that's, as people think about. Right. If people think about it in a aggregate manner as opposed to just their own home, I think that concept is something that people will understand. Although it is hard to grasp that, but as your real tax bill is driven by the amount of money in the budget, not your home value, because as the home values in the aggregate drop and tax rate comes up to compensate for that, it's to fund the same budget that was approved by the voters. So your net tax bill in a perfect world in that scenario would be no change.
That's correct. And two other points in the assessment is that our staff still has the capabilities and still do assess certain classes. If we see a class that's overassessed by 40%, then Karen's staff will adjust that. When same thing in the good old days when the market was going crazy and that particular class was underassessed by 40%, we make those adjustments. And also, when we predict a tax assessed value for next year for setting the tax rate in the budget, we only estimate new construction. So if we're going through a process whereby we think everybody's value will increase several years ago when the value was good, we don't count that as new construction because you're right, it's a finite group of properties. And, what your tax rate is depends upon what the assessed value is and what's approved by town meeting and school district meeting in the forms of a budget. And like Tom said perfectly, if your assessment goes down, your budget's constant within the year. So if your assessment goes down, your rate goes up. If your assessments go up, your rate goes down. But the amount you raise is the same.
Yeah, because you still need that same amount for the budget. It's got to come from somewhere, so it's just moving the number around.
Okay. Any other further questions on that?
All set, Dave.
Next up is Meg's budget. Want to take that one, Sue?
Sure. Town, current budget shows $461,026 on the town manager budget. Department head request was $467, so there's only a slight change there. Some different benefits, gave a slide showing the increases and decreases. Any questions on town clerk tax collection? Information technology, located on page 51. Total increase from fiscal year 12 is $29,520, or 9%. Operational line items have been level funded from fiscal year 12, with the exception of the contractual services. Again, we have a consultant that's on site 40 hours a week providing that service for us. So their consulting fee is included. There's a little bit of an increase this year. Our software support fees, which again are contractually mandated when we purchase the software, and equipment, and a detailed listing of the equipment requests by department, showing the department name, is located on page 52. Want to see the detail of that? Any questions on IT?
So, yeah, we're going by that too fast, I guess. 29,000, you said?
29,520 is the increase.
Tell me again why?
The consulting fee, we have an on-site consultant that provides 40 hours a week, plus of, that they're the ones who run our IT department. We don't have staff, we pay a consultant firm to do that for us.
Those guys are all consultants?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a slight increase in their contract, I think it might be 4,000.
9%, right?
So they need $6,000.
9% is the total department increase. So the contracted services, so their contract went from 115,000 to 119, so it's about a $4,000 increase for them. Our software support fees.
Is that the MAC and equipment property expense that's increased?
The contracted services line, the management services is all of our support fees.
Okay.
For all of our software products, and the machinery and equipment line.
4740, yeah. That's what I was thinking, yeah.
From 23,000 to 40,000.
So that's strictly the cost of the equipment that they're using that went up?
From the machinery and equipment?
Yeah.
That's for different departments submit requests for replacement of laptops or computers or printers, so on and so forth. So on
Okay,
page-
I know we want to get over this, but I'm just concerned because we spent 6,000 last year and we're looking to spend 57,000 this year, so that's quite a big jump.
Last year, we spent $6,100 because we had some old purchase orders from the previous year that we were
Right.
able to utilize. This year, the budget request is 40,000. And this is the listing.
I understand, it was 57 and now the manager's budget is 40,000, but that's still 30-some-odd thousand, 34,000 more.
It's an old purchase orders from the previous year that we were able to use last year.
So we don't get that this year again. There's another one of those things. Okay. And these are pieces of equipment that are needed because they're outdated, the other pieces are outdated?
Yes.
That's why, I mean, the public, I mean, we go over this too fast, they're gonna miss that, somebody could've gone up to get a drink of water. So it's
To
just,
make you feel better, my computer doesn't work.
It used to be Joe's, he moved it.
I moved to see, swapping around, all right, thank you.
So this combines last slide and this slide. Banks have now started charging fee if you want to get paper, and I know a lot of the federal agencies, your only communication back from them is electronic, to where the last slide talked about postage, and I saw a number of prior presentations talking about postage. Do we have anything in the works to try and, anything we send out that's not court or mandated by statute, you know, certified or registered mail, anything else, notices or whatnot, can we save in postage by putting people on a requirement that they're gonna get notices from the town in electronic form? No more mailings? I mean, is there a way to kind of control postage and across the board, not just your department?
We actually looked at a service for certifieds.
Yep.
If there was a way that we could do an electronic process for that. Unfortunately, the state RSA language said that we would retain the green card, mentioned that a few times, so there really wasn't a lot of flexibility as far as that goes.
But like routine mailings, nothing that's requires, I guess, the certified and the registered, I recognize for service requirements, but other things like routine mailings that we're sending out to applicants or, you know, dog notices, anything like that. Is there a way that we can use some of this technology money we're spending to try and allocate towards going one step further toward paperless?
Where we can look at that, we will.
Okay.
As far as the applicants go for like the planning process, that's paid for out of the developer.
Right,
Their
right.
money. As far as dog fees and that sort of thing, we use a bulk rate for that, so we're
Okay.
already minimizing our costs there, but we can look into that.
It just looks like a common refrain from all the presentations, postage going up.
Yep.
So, okay.
So, just one last question on internet access.
Think so.
Number of units, 24, would that mean that 24 computers that have internet access? Sorry, page 51, I want to give you the same,
Oh, internet access.
yeah. Is that something that's RFP, or we just get it from a cable access, or?
No, we did an RFP for that recently, to see if we could save some money in that with the vendor that we use for our internet access points.
Because it cost me like $6,000 a year, so maybe.
Yeah, we have a variety of T1 lines and different lines that we have, in order to connect us in various places, such as the fire station, have the fire station be able to connect to all the other stations, library.
But 24 connections, right?
It's 24 months.
Okay, I'm
So it's
sorry.
monthly at $550 a month.
550, okay.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
it's
2 years.
24 because we have 2 connection points that we have to pay for.
You guys, so you looked at the RFPs and that was the lowest one?
We're gonna be getting a lower price than that, but that's the price that we had when we put this budget together, but
Okay,
we feel we
because
can get a lower price
13,000
than that.
seems excessive, especially with all the amount of companies that are out there trying to bid for people's usage, so. Okay.
So Sue, I have a question. So last year, or this year's budget was 312,275, and the proposed budget, it was 341,795.
Correct.
So, not to beat a dead horse, because I know Joe's been asking a bunch of questions, but that seems like a pretty steep increase for one
The-
year.
Equipment.
The large amount of the
Biggest.
increase is in the machinery and equipment line.
We just, when was the last time we increased that? Because we've been doing that right along for the last umpteen years. I mean, how fast is the equipment going?
Well, a lot of the equipment, library, police department wanted a substantial amount this year for dispatch, IMC, and the detective computers. They had $30,000 just for them as well. And fire department had some large increases that they're requesting.
That was one of my questions I just asked.
Sorry, I've
No.
been trying to focus on this.
No,
thing.
we only spent, we budgeted 23,000 last year, we only spent 6. I mean, there's
We
obviously.
budgeted 31,838 in
Yeah.
fiscal year 11. We spent 6,000 in fiscal year 11.
Okay.
Because they had some old purchase orders that they could use up. Fiscal year 12, we budgeted 23,000.
Right. Okay.
And so far, I can get back to you and let you know how much we've spent to date. We're only 5 months into the
But I
year
think,
so
that
far.
I think the point to realize, and that's why I just said a few minutes ago, I said, another thing that's hitting us this year, point to realize is if you continually just spend $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, but yet there's a budget of $30,000 from the people that we trust to give us their opinions, eventually you're gonna get hit, if you haven't been spending the money to keep upgraded, so.
Police and fire have requests pretty frequently for computers, and again, they're more expensive than the computers that you and I would purchase because they're being utilized 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they require different specifications for their servers and their hard drives based on the type of software packages that they have to use.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit pricier machine.
Okay. Any other questions? John?
Sue, on page 51,
Is same line item I asked, items above the 4330-000.
Yep.
With the same heading, what is that, a general fund, what is?
That management services, all those support fees that are listed, those are all of our software packages.
Does that all go to the same account as the same category I was asking Alice about the management on the suicide?
It's an account called management services.
Okay.
And what it's for is for all the things that are listed below it, all of our software support fees.
So everything below there is inclusive of that account?
Yes, where it says BlackBerry Internet, service hosting for SilverTech, support for Amaze. Those are all different software packages that we have, and those are our annual support fees for each package.
Those management service fees will differ from department to department.
They could be a variety of things.
Kind of like a miscellaneous fund.
Yes.
For lack of a better word.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What specifically went up $9,000 in those? Is it just all of them?
I can look to find out the exact contract that went up.
I have to know if one particular thing went up.
No, I think they all,
They
a
all did.
variety of them went up a little bit. Yep.
The New World is a phone company or a cable company, or?
No, New World is our financial software system, so it handles finance, HR, community development, building department, and town clerk and tax collection fees.
It's the
Okay,
ERP.
so when you, I'm sorry?
It's the ERP.
Okay, all right.
How about if we go to Old World software, would that make a difference?
I think Old World is a little bit less.
Probably on the Old World version.
All right, Tom has a
Out of
question.
41,000, I hope not.
Go ahead, Tom.
So, in the way we do accounting, I'm assuming that all the IT expenditures are centralized. So in this line item, we're talking about not only the town hall and all the departments here, we're talking about police, fire, town garage, library. It's all,
Anything technology related, whether it's internet, computers, software support fees, and all of that for the entire town is located within this budget.
and we don't, from an accounting standpoint, we don't back charge those individual departments for the cost of
We do not.
distributed cost.
Okay. All right.
Except for school.
Okay, Sue,
School's not.
go ahead. Why don't we proceed?
Any other questions? Human Services Division, located on page 103. Total increase from fiscal year 12 is $1,900, $924 or 1%. Operational lines have been level funded from fiscal year 12 with the exception of the contractual services, which is our consulting fee for the on-site program administration of Human Services. Any questions?
I think
Yes.
it's, in this time of economic,
Frugality.
yeah, in economic despair, I'm talking about in the private side. I'm surprised that we've been able to hold that to just a 1% increase. But are we lucky, or are the techniques that you're employing that have made this so successful?
The retention of community health services as the administrators of the Human Services Division budget is really what's made it great for us to realize some of the savings. They're connected with a lot of the state programs and other funding programs that people can explore first before needing to tap into town resources.
It's not, a lot less duplication of services. Yeah. Todd?
Actually, I'm all set.
Okay, I'm just kidding. All right, any other questions for? Okay, Sue?
Debt service, located on page 116. Talked a little bit about debt the other night when the manager did his initial presentation. We have a couple slides to talk about all of our outstanding bonds.
Regarding our bonds, is that our financial advisor continuously reviews our current obligations to see if there's opportunities to refinance at a lower rate. They usually is not for a couple of reasons. One is that we usually receive a premium from the bond purchaser, which essentially requires us to pay money back within the first 10 years of the debt service. Second of all is that all the older debt has already been refunded, and all of our new debt is at a pretty competitive rate. So we've essentially exhausted, at least currently, our opportunities to save additional money by further refunding.
That's it for debt.
I'm probably gonna get laughed at for this question, but can you refinance bonds? Is now a time where we could refinance some of these older ones?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about, is that we have refinanced most of our older bonds.
Okay.
And a lot of our newer bonds, since we receive a premium from the purchaser, like the bond for the roads, it was $1 million bond, we received a check for $30,000, which essentially inhibits our ability to refinance that within the first 10 years. Of course, with the highway bond, it's a 10-year bond, so, but we also sold that one at 2.21%, so you can't refund that particular one for anyone, any significant amount lower, so.
The last time we did a refinancing was 2004, I believe, 2005. We had some bonds that were in the 6s, and we were able to get them down into the 3s. But at this point, where interest rates are so low, like you said, there's really no area that we can capture. Any other questions on debt?
Yes, I'm on the record as not liking it.
Municipal insurance located on page 62 funds all our casualty, liability, and property vehicle insurance. Town participates in a municipal pool with 200 other entities, and our budget request for that is $224,000. Supervisor of the checklist, it's located on page 42 in your book. Fiscal year 12 shows a budget of $17,310. Fiscal year 13 is $14,704, so it's a decrease of $2,606. Items which have increased is some part-time salaries for the election assistants. The elected salaries have gone down $2,700. They went down $100 for postage and $178 for their mandatory benefits. Any other questions on supervisors? Yes?
Sorry, just trying to catch up to you. I'm still on insurance.
All
Sorry,
right.
just got there. So on the insurance, is it because we're a bad insurer? Is that the reason why the rate went up? Or is it just because the rate went up kind of significantly? 174, now we're at 207, so.
Well, the rate went up 8%, and after, we sent an RFP for all our insurances and transferred our coverages from LGC to Primex, which they're both municipal risk pools, and we saved about $40,000 in the current budget.
What would it went up? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That was- okay, that was the same.
and part of the program is an 8% increase for the next 3 years, whereby our previous carrier had at least 9% increase for the next 3 years.
Well, thank goodness that you guys negotiated that before, because we saved quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
with
and
that
and it's just, it's just part of the market, with the insurance market, at times, they want your dollars to invest them, and then other times, when the investment opportunities aren't that great, they have to essentially charge a premium to pay for the exposures, so that's why the insurance market keeps going up and down, which we're currently experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't guarantee that that's gonna be able to be negotiated every year, like you said. I mean, you guys went through a process to get it down to 174 as it was, right?
Right.
From 205.
Right, yeah, we plan to send those out every 3 to 5 years.
Oh, good job on that, thank you.
Yep, good.
Sue, on the supervisors of the checklist, the decrease is pretty dramatic, percentage-wise. I mean, it's only a couple $1,000s, but pretty dramatic, and that's gonna accommodate a presidential election cycle. So I was kind of surprised to see that drop. With the thought, with the understanding that we have the largest polling place in the state at the high school, I guess a question that started to be asked of me is, at what point do we no longer want to have the largest polling place? I mean, at what point do we get diminishing returns in terms of traffic and inconvenience to people and suppressing the voter turnout and so forth? So the wonder is what it would cost if we were to, say, establish multiple polling places in town, for example, South School, North School, High School, what the incremental cost would be to do that, for example, for a presidential election, and what would it drive, would it be a substantial driver of this number or inconsequential? And I understand that's probably something you can't answer off the top of your head, but that's something I think as the community has grown and continues to grow. I don't know how proud we want to be of having the largest polling place. I think that's a statistic that may be hurting us in terms of voter turnout. So just something to think about in terms of going forward as to what it would cost to split that up a little bit and give people a more local and maybe more responsive place for them to vote in.
Okay, we can take a look at that. I suspect the cost will be appreciable in that. Obviously, you need a staff to manage the voters, so you'd end up going essentially from a minimum staff at the high school now with additional workers for like presidential. You'd have to maintain minimum staff, voting machines, and some supervisor of checklists presence at all 3 places, but we'll work up those numbers and get them back to the council.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Sue?
Cemeteries located on page 60, fiscal year 13 budget $32,974, which I believe remains flat compared to last year. The slide shows a detail of what we pay on average for our cemetery maintenance. Any questions on that? Heritage Commission, located on page 59, level funded budget request at $827. Morrison House, also located on page 59, level funded budget request at $7,500.
I looked down fast, I thought it said 7.5 million. Sorry.
Any questions on those? Conservation Commission, located on page 64. This funds the operating expenses of the Conservation Commission as an increase of $125 this year, so their fiscal year 13 budget request is $3,425. Any questions on that? Okay. How about the Cable Department?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Sue. I'm sure we'll be seeing you in the upcoming weeks.
We'll be back here, I'm sure, by the end of the day.
Christian, which one do you have in the other?
Dottie, there's candy.
There's candy?
There's candy right
Oh, my goodness. There certainly is. Is that for just the people whose budget's going to be cut, or? Oh, I feel so.
Janos's attempt to influence the council.
Well, I don't have any candy, but I'm going to ask you to
For who?
indulge
Dave?
me for about 2 minutes before I start talking
Go
about
ahead.
numbers.
2 minutes, he's
Go ahead.
gonna time you, be
Max.
careful. Oh, he's not there.
Oh, he's right. John,
He's
hold
there.
up. 2 minutes, and I'll be done.
Hopefully,
Hold on,
we
Dottie,
won't-
Dottie, hold on one second.
Might take me
Is
2
it
minutes to
over?
figure out how to set the alarm.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a quick question for Dave, just for the record. When we were holding our open meetings for Budget Committee coming into this, two former councilors came in, and one of them recommended that we ask Dave if there could be a Budget Committee liaison when there are any contract negotiations coming up with unions, so that we could get educated and have somebody reporting back what the fiscal impact was on taxpayers. And, I don't know what the process is for that, but I think that's something that when we discussed it amongst ourselves, that the Budget Committee was favorably inclined, if that's possible, to have somebody go to those negotiations or just be more involved in it, just to get ourselves in the loop.
Well, it's a great thought process, and the council tried that, but in all reality, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. When we went through negotiations, we would sit in a room, and usually in Dave's office, Dave and Sue and the attorney would go into the negotiation. You basically just wait there, they'd come back, they'd give you an idea of what transpired, and that was pretty much it. So you'd tie up your day really for a couple hours most, and really not accomplish a hell of a lot, because you can't sit in the room.
I've been to enough mediations that I can say, been there, done that. But maybe just when it's going on, we can have some contact point, whether it's Dave or through the council, just to kind of get feedback as
Has
to where it
no
stands.
problem doing that.
All right, great.
Yeah.
That was a request made
Right.
to us, a suggestion, so we discussed
The
passing it on.
one thing that Council Farrell just mentioned, my recommendation would be to have a scheduled non-public with Dave.
Okay.
Before your meeting or after your meeting, or, and then he can update you that way.
Okay, great, thank
That
you.
would probably be the best thing.
Okay.
Okay?
Excellent.
All right, Dottie, all set?
Was that my 2 minutes?
No, your 2 minutes will start right now.
That's okay.
Oh, I forgot.
Okay, the first thing I want to share with you is that one of our former state reps and our former fire chief won an award, 3rd place, in the Northeast region, which is all of New England and New York, for a program that they did called Honor and Respect for the American Flag. And that's a pretty prestigious honor to get an award like that. And I wanted them to have it known to the town that they did that. And that
thank you to
program
Al.
has gone all over the country and has gotten really great remarks sent back
Al
about it.
Seifert.
Moving right along, I also have here another place in the same video Festival. And this one is for the Veterans Day tribute, and Drew Karen is the producer. So I had to spring this on him. If I told him I was going to do this, he wouldn't have come.
Well, thank you,
And
Drew.
then, still in the wrapper, first place for the program that Drew does called Agenda Item. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, with Mary Wing Soares. And who's the lady's name now? I haven't met her yet. Kathy?
Whoever replaced Tim.
Yeah. So he got a first place award for that one. And
Still
this is
going?
all- it's still going.
That's pretty impressive.
And he got another first place for a program that he did in the category, which category is this one? I have to read these things, this is hard. News and magazine formats. And it was about New England muscle cars. So hopefully you're watching and seeing all
At
of
least he's
these
getting some
awards
awards. It
that
won't be
he's
in fantasy
getting.
football this year, Drew.
But he's our star, and and these are all professional categories that he wins in too. So that's twice as hard as the other ones. Okay, time's up.
Well, congratulations to your achievements there, big guy. That's pretty impressive. Nice job.
Okay, the first slide that we have up here, basically, I kind of tried to arrange it like I do my usual presentations. And we were directed level funding, so that's what we did. We made it very easy on ourselves. We usually, from year to year, those lines go up a little bit, and we decided that we would just level fund all of the operating expenses, and anything that went over, we would just find it somewhere else and reprioritize something else if that occurs. So that's basically what we did there. For the machinery and equipment, the plan for us at the studio is that we always plan on having replacements every year. There's going to be something that is either now defunct, outdated, whatever you want to call it. And Drew keeps a really close watch on the equipment. He's really the tech person who likes to get into this. So the camcorders, we replace them on a regular basis because one thing, they change. For another, we've had some with a lot of wear and tear on them. We've been using some of them for about 10 years. And I have to compliment our volunteers because when I talk to other access centers, that doesn't happen. Most of them have to replace a lot more often. Their equipment is not being as well respected as our volunteers do ours, and we really appreciate that. Updating, we're going to do some updating on lighting, and that was in the studio, right? And one of the reasons that we put this in the budget is because I was under the impression that we had already gone past all of those opportunities to get any rebates or reductions, and the lighting company said no, they still think they can get some for us. So we should be able to maybe get some help with that, but we have to appropriate the number first anyway. Head-end server, like everything else, things need to be upgraded. Drew has done a number of new things over the past year or so with adding the live streaming, with adding the on-demand, that type of thing. And this will just give us even more capacity to stay up to date on those kinds of things. And then in Moose Hill, we want to make you all look nice. So, and we want you to be well heard. So these microphones were the best when we bought them, but now there's better. So we want to change the audio system in this room so that we don't. Did you just make that? Isn't it wonderful when the volunteers just make it work like that? So that's what we're talking about there. And if you have any questions on machinery and equipment, Drew is right here. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, what's the retention cycle? And you might have went by that, you might have probably maybe already said on the camcorders. What did you say you switch it up at every, how many years?
We've had the same ones now for about 10 years. The whole idea with the camcorders now is we want to go tapeless. So you're just reducing the amount of you're paying for tape. So almost every camcorder that comes out now doesn't even use tape.
So you're not even on discs yet? I mean,
We would be on
card.
little cards.
They came out, I bought mine 3 years ago, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Those are gonna be outdated pretty soon, so.
Yeah. We always, we try to look at the, the big guys and
No,
see
I-
what they're doing. And of course, we're never gonna catch up, but we try to not be more than 2 or 3 steps
No, my
behind them.
point is the frugality of that, 10
Oh,
years. I
yeah.
mean, I don't even know if I can find my camcorder from 10 years ago, so.
Well, you might have trouble checking anything out of the studio after that statement. Okay, the next slide, Drew. Okay, this is our special request, and she's sitting in the back of the room there. We are hoping that you will take a good look at this budget and where it's funded from, and recognize that we really have to have a trainer. If we don't have a trainer, you don't have PEG Access Television. It's just that simple. I would not have somebody come in the studio and just say, well, go down to that room, there's about $80,000 worth of equipment, and just hit a few buttons and see what happens. We can't do that. There has to be somebody there to train them. And Ellen can provide all kinds of numbers on how many trainings she does in a year, and the types of training that she does, and also the people that she trains. She is currently built her particular programs, the video camp and the video club, up to the point where we are actually drawing a lot of our active volunteers on shows from the kids that she's training. They're doing a great job, and they love it, and they'll be our future volunteers as time goes on as well. So she's building up a good bank of volunteers that way, and then we do have a lot of adults that come in and also want to get involved. A lot of them come in and say, Jay, I took a class in this in college, and I think I finally have time to get back into it. She gets nothing but compliments from everyone who trains with her, that she makes everything very understandable, not overwhelming, because a lot of the seniors always get scared when they see all those buttons, and she makes it very approachable. But the main thing here is that I'm not really sure why we're discussing this again so soon. Because if you'll remember, and I'm sure you do, less than 6 months ago, back in June, this was discussed, and a decision was made at that time that the position would be retained in this budget. And there was an understanding that I walked out of that meeting with, that everyone understood that if her position goes and my retirement, then Drew would be left in a position where he's in charge of absolutely everything, and he's good, but I don't think he's that good, and would also have to hire somebody, train them, keep everything up and running for the whole time. I don't have my drop-dead date for my retirement, but it absolutely is going to be as soon as I can. Okay. And I have to talk to the state retirement system and find out how I'm going to work out of that one. But when I saw that taken out of the budget, I kind of got this feeling that, oh my God, if I don't retire, we lose a trainer. And I'm hoping that that's not the case, because I am going to retire. I can't give you the drop-dead date yet, but I am going to retire. And like I said, you can't have access without somebody who's there to do the training. And that certainly isn't me anymore. My expertise has gone more towards the franchise, the cable company, the customer, staying up to date on the laws and all of that sort of thing, and dealing with the people when they come in. I do some training, I do orientation. That's my way of sort of touching base with each volunteer as they come in, so they know that they have another person they can come to work with for ideas and things. But not with, I don't have time to learn the new equipment when it comes in.
Hold on one second.
So, yes,
Dave,
sorry.
what was taken out of the budget? Which
Well,
position?
There was one position taken out of the budget, so what I did is I took the least expensive position out of the budget.
Okay, so the way I remembered it was you guaranteed us that night that you were going to retire in this budget. Is that deal still on?
Not, what, in the 20?
No, you had
Before
made,
next June?
Yeah, you had made the
No.
comment that during that budget season that you were going to retire and that we'd be able to fill that position with Aaron.
Okay, I think that I'm not 100% sure, I'd have to go back
I'm
and
just
check it
asking
myself.
for
But
budgetary
what-
purposes.
I am not actually eligible at all until next September. So I know
isn't that
that for
interesting?
sure. So I was talking about the next budget cycle, and I guess we were like, what, June 30th, and you might have thought I meant tomorrow?
Yeah, I believe the
That's
minutes will
possibility.
reflect that you actually said, "I will retire if you keep this position," and that was the deal you made with the council.
No.
That is certainly the impression that this counselor got. and
No,
think
I
there's
didn't make
probably
that,
two
no.
others that
Yeah,
got
that's
it,
kinda
too.
what I thought, too.
No, I wanted you
So
to
so
know
so the
that I
facts are a little blurred.
Okay, I wanted you to know that I was in the retirement process and that I'd be retiring very soon.
With all due respect,
And
that's
that-
not what you said.
I'm sorry, I will,
That-
I am sorry.
That is not
I-
what you
I
said, that's
don't,
not the impression you gave. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, you came in here and you told us, "Hey, this lady's important and I'm gonna retire, you ought to keep her." That's what you
Yes,
said.
I did say that, yes.
Yes, and you said you were going to be finished by the end of the next budget cycle. Is that not what we heard?
Yes.
Well, 2013, September is when I can retire. That's the earliest I can
That was
retire.
kind
I'm
of, that was
sorry.
kind of withheld from us.
I did not mean to do that. When I
Well,
said the next.
I mean, it's a fuzzy line. I mean, with all due respect, that's what you came in here and gave us the impression of.
I'm sorry that I
As one
left
of
you the
three people who
impression
was
that I
still
was
sitting
going to
here.
leave by June of, is that what you were thinking, June of
But,
2013?
Did I misunderstand that, guys?
No.
Just making sure I'm.
That's why I led off with that question, because, I was kind of, when I saw that he took out that position, it left me the impression like, well, I thought Dottie said she was retiring, so shouldn't it have been Dottie's that wasn't factored in, or? So I was under that impression, too. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so now that that's clarified, okay, so we can move on from there, I think. Looking at this position, how many years has this person been in place?
Is it 4 or 5? Just
Okay,
over
so trying to separate the person from the position, basically what we're talking about is 4 or 5 years of, just like we talked about with the roads, we have an investment. We've invested in this position for 4 or 5 years. We have somebody that's knowledgeable about what's going on there in the support position. With your retirement coming, I guess, next year, do we say we'll dispose of this this year, lose that 4 or 5 years of investment to save that money for one more year? That's the question. I'm trying to clarify it and trying to just bring it down to the least.
But this
level of-
goes beyond that, because the whole discussion was, back then, when we were looking at the budget, we were looking at the position of, we're keeping that position, and she will stay there, her value appreciated, serving, and we'd have 2 people running the department. But still, we're at 3 people, which means we're still funding an extra person now for really something that should have 2. And that's where we're kind of looking at.
If I could just, I apologize that I gave anybody the wrong impression. It was not my intention, so I have to start there. And if I left you thinking that I had a date certain in June, I did not have a date certain, because I've not talked to the retirement system people and all of that. So I do apologize for that. But stepping back from what you thought I was going to do, the situation has not changed in that the person is a valuable asset to the Access
We're not
Center.
disputing that. That's
And-
not even
no,
on the
no, no,
table.
No,
What's on the table is, now we still have another position where we gotta consider financing that. So
And
that
that-
still means that we're left with another ad in the budget that we're gonna have to figure out.
That's, okay, what I'm trying to get to, Sean, is that this budget funds itself, okay? We don't tax anybody for it. And I guess what I don't understand is, if we're not taxing for it, we level funded, we went lower in the machinery and equipment lines. We did all of those things that we were told to do in this budget. But I do not understand why we're no longer looked at as a self-supporting entity, okay, because we are. And a statement had been made that the budget could not sustain, the ongoing income could not sustain 3 people in that department. And if the money is put into that budget the way the special revenue fund, the way it's been going, then there was no reason why that shouldn't have supported 3 people.
Now, hold on a
And
second.
the operating costs.
Tom had a question in regards to something.
So it looks like, whatever happened, and we can clear up the facts later. But Dave, if we were, I think what's being presented to us at this point is a supplemental budget line item to fund additional person for additional 3 months. I think that's one option, I guess,
No.
the July, August, September. I know Dottie's suggesting leaving in there for 12 months, you know, a fully funded position. But if another option to us is to make some budget room to accommodate Dottie's projected retirement date in September, to me that feels like a 90-day delta.
Just so I understand the dates, I think Dottie's new date is September of 13, which is FY14.
What?
Correct. You saying you're eligible for retirement in September of 13?
Oh, no, jeez, no.
Okay.
September 12, right?
Next September is my earliest eligibility.
Right, so
yes.
that-
But please don't take that, that I'm giving you a date certain, because I have to talk to all of these retirement people. Okay?
Just for planning purposes.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
we
I'm
were-
sorry that I got the 2013 there, I got
Assuming
flustered.
Assuming that September 2012 date is the
Mhm.
date, then to me that feels like a 90-day delta.
That's correct. It would be,
What would that cost?
well, we'd have to, you want to sue? Essentially, there's about a $62,000 difference between my recommended budget based upon the council's vote of last budget session and Dottie's recommended budget, so it would be a quarter of that for about $16,000.
Does that include any kind of accumulated time she may have?
That would not include any end-of-service separations, that's correct.
And where would that come out of if, when somebody
come out of the-
retires, that comes out of?
That would come out of the cable budget.
Where?
The cable budget.
Could, anybody else? I'm sorry.
So those expenses, that delta, I mean, we're gonna have to pay the retirement out processing cost, regardless of when the date is.
That's correct.
So the delta increase is about 16,000?
That's right, it's about
Is that right, 16?
Right, I think there's two things. Number one is if the town approved the budget with 3 positions for FY13, for 3 positions the entire year, then essentially, currently of the franchise fees which the town collects, which is about $252,000, which goes to the cable fund,
I'm sorry, how much was that?
about $252, which goes to the cable fund, okay? About 105, 108 goes to the general fund. There would be about a $75,000 deficit regarding revenues against expenses. And so that deficit would be funded by their undesignated fund balance, or their fund in their special revenue fund, which currently stands at $535,000.
All right, so, and this is up to the council to decide whether they go with the two-person solution, the 3-person solution, or the 2-person plus 3-month solution. That delta, that $16,000 delta that we were talking about, is that something that the cable fund can afford? Is there money there in the cable fund, so
Yes.
it doesn't become a taxpayer expense?
That's correct,
To the
there is.
tax rate?
There is that, those funds are available in their fund balance.
So I guess,
I have a question, if you don't mind. Thank you for giving me the number on the fund balance, because I didn't have, I was waiting for that number. But I am a little bit confused. If the budget hasn't yet to be approved, you just said that the $104,000 is not going into the cable budget.
That's what the current budget recommendation from me is.
Current recommendation.
That's
But
right.
if that $104,000 continued to go into the reserve the way it used to for over 10 years, then there would be no need to cut back on the number of employees. And that's one of the
So we're
things that I'm
rewriting
looking at.
history then from last,
Well,
from
that-
last June?
Pardon?
Are we rewriting history from June?
Which one of us?
You?
No, sir, I am not. No, I am not. I have always maintained that that should be cable reserve fund money.
I agree, you have
However,
done that.
3 times, $40,000 was moved automatically. And last year, 104,000 was asked for and not done, that I, no, it was done last year, I believe. So, I can't remember. But anyway, at this point, as Dave had said in his initial presentation, these are policy decisions, okay? This is something that you didn't adopt the resolution last year the way it was presented to you. You went ahead and made a single-year decision and agreed to consider each year what all the facts were before you made another deduction from that fund.
Correct.
And my point is, you know, if I'm not, I don't want to beat this dead horse. My point is, if the cable fund is properly funded with the fees that come from the franchise, there's no need to eliminate an employee. There's no need to do anything except stay self-supporting.
So as I see it, and I'm trying to stay just from the accounting standpoint here.
Mm-hmm.
There's three options on the table for us. There may be more, but I see three. One is to go with the town manager's recommended budget, which looks like the result would be a reduction in headcount come the end of June. Or we go with an increase to extend, to make room for that third person for additional 3 months, which is an increase of 16,000. Third option is to fully fund the current 3 positions through the entire fiscal year, and which is going to require us to go find some more money beyond the cable fund, the way it's currently structured.
The way it's currently structured, you have to draw from the fund balance of the cable fund.
And if you change the structuring, if you said, all right, let's not take that cable fund money and put it in the general fund, then we'd have a hole, which we'd have to raise taxes to fill that hole.
That's correct.
And what's correct? So I have another question, Sean, if that's okay. I don't know when we stopped having money go into the reserve fund. Just went right in there, okay? And then I developed my budget, and that's where the money was coming from to fund the budget. But I think what I just heard you say is that now the money's going into the general fund?
No, what you heard me...
Is the whole thing going in the general fund?
What you heard me say, which was consistent with the council adopted last summer, is that of the 5%, 3.5% goes directly into the cable fund, 1.5% goes into the general fund.
That's not the resolution that I got back.
Well, then you
The one
misread
I
it, 'cause
got.
that's the way it works. It's
Well-
in black and white.
For 1 year, not an ongoing thing.
The council's position was for 1 year to be looked at again this year.
Yes, exactly, so not ongoing automatically.
Councilor Green has a comment.
I'm sorry.
Okay, the way I must have been in a different meeting, because that's not at all how I remember it. I did not like taking this money out of the fund. I asked if we could look at this on a regular basis, on a yearly basis, and we
Which is
said
what
that
we
we
all
would.
decided to do.
I understand, but the budget, and I'm not saying anybody made any errors, but the budget is already, has it already put in there. And I realize what you're saying in regards to the fact that we will have to try to figure out where the rest of that money is going to come from. But just to say, okay, well, we did it this year, we're going to do it again next year, it's like it's already taken in a way, if you think about it from a budgetary standpoint.
Just a proposed
Okay, so-
budget at this point.
Okay, so I'm uncomfortable having that number already showing there, and having this position being cut when that's not what we agreed to. We agreed to look at this on a regular basis, on a yearly basis,
And
and
that's
not
what we're
pull from
doing
it.
now. We're
Okay.
looking at that, and we'll make a decision as a board going
Yeah.
forward.
Right.
He's proposing what the options are. That's what Dave is giving to us as our employee. We look at that, and as a board of 5, we'll decide if that's the way we want to go or not.
But is it or is it not saying the 252 plus the 104? The 104 represents that additional monies, right?
104 is the extra money, yes.
Right, so you're budgeting it that way, without us even talking about it, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, can I draw your attention to my cable, my budget message to the council?
Yep.
Page 4, item 4, cable division funding. 2 policy decisions need to be considered by the council. First, the council approved an FY12 budget with 3 positions funded, with the expectation that staff levels would be reduced to 2 in FY13 due to staff retirements. The proposed budget includes 2 positions. Second, the council is encouraged to continue its support of Resolution 2011-5 by sharing franchise fee revenue between the cable division and the general fund.
Right.
So that's my recommendation in my budget.
And that's clear. All I'm saying is we're kind of putting the cart before the horse when we're talking about this, nailing down this cable budget is all. Because we didn't talk about that yet.
So hear me out. So Dave, I have a question. For the folks at home that are watching, we pay salaries out of what?
Which department are you referring to?
Cable.
Cable, all financial transactions are from the
Where?
finance office.
Right. The taxpayers, right?
The
No?
cable funds are paid from special revenue fund, of which and the cable erosion fund is predominantly two sources. One is the franchise fee, second is the equipment grant from the cable company.
Okay, and the total amount is how much again?
Well, the franchise fees are roughly about $90,000 a quarter, and the equipment grant is $20,000?
28.
$28,000.
So it's 360, would you say?
No,
360 a year?
388.
388.
360 plus 28.
Okay, so out of that, do you transfer money from that account into the general fund, because that's where the checks are cut?
What happens is when the check comes in, okay, for $90,000 a quarter, okay, that's a 5%. So of that 5%, 1.5% goes to the general fund, and the balance goes to the special revenue fund.
Okay, so maybe I'm not being clear. All right, so do you draw the salaries for the 3 employees out of that money?
In the special revenue fund?
Yes.
Yes, we do. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
So
we're not- so we're not-
by state law to put it in any special fund, or can it just go to the general
You
fund?
can go to the general fund. That's a
So a
policy
policy decision
decision.
was made at some point to put it in the special revenue.
That's correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, so when you had the comment earlier about the 40, it's another $40,000, the thing is that the difference between it being another $40,000 is correct, but the problem is it's not on the taxpayer, and that's what I want to let people understand right now. This is out of that special revenue fund, which comes from franchise fees.
Okay, so Dave, Sue, what are the 3 salaries amount to right now? Salary benefits for the cable employees.
Page 129.
The fiscal year 12 budget column on page 159 for cable,
Yep,
158,067
$158,067,
is the salary amount for those 3 employees.
that's salary and benefits.
That's just salary.
That's salary, okay. And what are the benefits?
I can go through and add them for you if you
Okay.
give me a minute.
What's the difference?
I'm gonna get to the bottom of why this is money that should be in the general fund. And I'm gonna get to that after she gives me the information. I will explain it to you from my point of view on why this is a fruitless argument that we go through every stinking year. Pardon me for being a little upset.
Well, if I may, while Sue's making that calculation, just so everybody understands, what today is a budget workshop with the town council and the budget committee and the town manager and the department heads. And this is the first iteration of the proposal. It's not the final budget. It's not even close to the final budget. We'll go through several massages and changes and deltas, and then we'll go through a series of public hearings where the public will come in and they'll express their support or lack of support, request changes, and so forth. And then we'll put together a recommendation to the deliberative session, and then we'll put it to the deliberative session, and the townspeople will come, and they'll have their shot at massaging it or changing it, and then that will go, that final recommendation goes on the ballot.
Sorry, 388.
And then the people will come on election day and they'll vote for the budget up or down, and if they vote it down, then we'll revert to a default budget. So what we're talking about today is nowhere near where we're gonna end up. So, if people are concerned that, holy smokes, decisions made today, that's the final line in the sand, it's not. It's just a starting point, and it's just the beginning of the discussion.
Okay.
We have Lisa?
Oh, I just had a question. I noticed on page 130, we have transfer to the general fund, and under the 2011 amended budget, there's 40,000, and then under the 2012 amended budget, there's 40,000. I'm just curious why I'm not seeing a reflection of the transmitting of $105,000 and $108,000 to the general fund. Am I just not looking in the right place, or?
No, the better way to do it is to allocate it when it comes in. Before, it all went to the special revenue fund, then it was transferred over, that $40,000. So last year, we did it the better way, which is to allocate it when it comes through the door. And the funds that go to the cable division go in the special revenue fund. The funds that are budgeted for the general fund go directly to the general fund. That's why there's not a line item budget there.
Okay, so prior to this, all of the franchise fees were entailed in this budget. And last year, we had a new accounting process whereby what was considered a one-time donation to the general fund is now being taken out of this budget and simply reflected on the town side.
Well, I think there was, I think the council and the town approved a budget which had $40,000 from the special revenue fund encompassed in the cable budget for 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, okay, because I have 11 and 12, but I have, under the 2013 initial department head budget, 0, and under your town manager budget, 0 transfer. But that's because of the new accounting.
That's correct.
Methodology is simply not being reflected.
That's correct.
Okay, I understand, thank you.
Okay, hold on a second.
Dave,
Yeah.
does the cable division have its own undesignated fund balance?
It does.
Okay, you said it's about $500,000.
535, 728.
Okay.
As of 6/30/11.
Okay. You know, I'm going to make a suggestion, you know, in order to resolve this. I mean, we can do this all we want, and it's, you know, intellectually stimulating from an accounting point of view, right up there with cost accounting, but, you know, I understand your view that these are cable monies and paid by cable ratepayers and not taxpayers. But the problem with that argument is that's like saying the town isn't entitled to spend in the general fund dog registration fees. Well, frankly, it is, Dottie. You can shake your head, but it's not. Certain people have dogs, others don't. Certain people pay registration fees. The rest of the taxpayers don't. So at least on that level, to me, it's the same thing.
Okay.
So what I'd suggest is you have a line item here for replacement and upgrade of $52,000, which is approximately the salary you're talking about. I would suggest we eliminate that, and if you want to get that equipment, you take it out of your UFB. I don't know who designates that.
Well, you have to, actually, the way it's done currently, because you have to appropriate money from UFB by the voters. So the way it's shown now is proper, is that you show the entire gross budget, which is going to be expended from the cable division, and if the revenues come in don't meet the expenditures, and the balance is essentially raised from UFB.
Well, however you got to do it, I would suggest that if you want to keep that position, I would suggest doing that, because, you know, again, this is, for lack of a better term, nonsense to go over, oh, it came out of this pocket versus that pocket, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so
Okay, so I'll get one after his.
either make your choice, take the person, take the equipment, or take it out of the UFB, and, you know, when you two figure it out, come back and talk to us.
Dan?
I'm just seeking some clarity. This lady right now has the job, right?
She has the job, yes.
Now, are we talking about, there'd only be 2 people at the cable center for 2012? And one of them would be her, so you were only anticipating there being 2 people?
Get rid of her
No.
for 1 year. and then you have to
2013.
hire
13.
somebody
This is
else.
the 2013 that we're talking about.
Correct.
So if we go through and we try to fix everything, and this lady, we decide to keep it on, now if everybody votes for the default budget, is this lady out of luck?
The, if I can explain, the sewer, cable, and police details are in the special revenue fund. They're not part of the default. They're a separate warrant article. So there's not a default option with respect to the special revenue funds.
Okay.
Okay. So one more thing. Go ahead. Okay. So, not, because I don't want people's heads to spin around and eyes to pop out of their head. Just, I don't know who can clarify this for us. Maybe it's because I'm a freshman counselor, but you pay your tax bill, okay? That goes off. That's separate. I pay my cable bill. That's part of the franchise fee. That's separate. That's not the same. Those are two separate dollars coming out. Yeah, it's coming all out of my checking account, but I choose to have cable. I choose to pay a franchise fee. I choose, as a person that has cable, to pay that exorbitant amount. It's a terrible dollar amount, but
Amen.
I still choose to pay it. So, to me, I don't agree, and it's just one person's opinion. And again, I'm not trying to start World War II here, another Civil War, but, it's taxes are one thing and franchise fees are another.
And dog registration fees are another.
No,
but
that's-
that goes to the general fund. And car registration fees are another. Not everybody has a car.
And we're not saying that part of that fee shouldn't go to part of the fund. What we're talking about is controlling it. For a few years, we started saying 40, 40, 40, 40. Now we're up to 104. So when do we keep, when do we stop? That's all.
Again, you're talking about something Dave put in the budget.
Yep.
That is to be determined, yet to be determined. Okay, next. Tom.
Here's how I recall the situation that we're faced, and for the full understanding that last year's council cannot encumber this year's council, so it has to be a fresh decision. But here's my history, my memory of this history, and that was that we were faced with last year's budget and came very close to reducing headcount in the cable division by 1. A very well thought out, in my opinion, and coherent argument was made by Dottie that we had a very valuable employee that we were probably going to lose in that process. That would be, it would be difficult to replace that, and wouldn't it be sad if, since she was going to retire in a year, we would drop from 2 to 1, and we'd have to go hire someone to replace Dottie, and that valuable asset would probably be sucked up by some other entity, and she would no longer be available. So, as a council, we agreed to create a bridge for a year to keep money in the budget so that we could bridge to Dottie's retirement and maintain the valuable human resource that we all know that we have. So we have some new information today, and that says that our original assumption, whether we were wrong with that assumption, but it was an assumption, is that the obligation to Dottie in the budget sense would end in June of 2012. We're now hearing that's probably going to be September 2012. So if we want to maintain the same logic that we entertained last year, and we don't have to, but if we want to maintain that same logic, then that requires us to entertain a delta of 3 months to further lengthen the bridge, if you will, from 12 months for Dottie to 15 months, which would take us to September of next year. So that's how I see it. Now, we could start over again and rethink this and decide something different, but we follow the logic that we started with, I think, sometime around January of last year, and it's been following to this point. That's how I see the play in front of us at this point.
Well put. Dave, so I had a quick question.
Yes.
So the numbers that Sue gave me was basically, like you said, we have $388,000 that goes into that cable fund, right? Approximately, with the fees and everything that goes along with that.
There are $388,000 generated through the contract. Of that amount, about 104, 105 goes to the general fund. The
No,
balance
just-
goes to the...
Hold on, I get that. I just,
Okay.
Prior to policy.
prior to policy, okay?
Okay.
So 388 comes in.
Right.
Salary and benefits for 3 employees fiscal year 12 was $223,884, okay? Which leaves a balance of $164,116. Is that what comes out of that account right now? To go to the general fund to pay for the salaries and benefits?
No. What we get, the town gets a check, okay? The check represents 5% of the franchise, a 5% franchise fee. 3.5% goes to the cable fund, 1.5% goes to the general fund, okay? So that number which the cable fund receives on an annual basis from the franchise fee is approximately $252,000, plus the $28,000 for the equipment, so it's $280,000, which
Goes
we-
into the,
into the cable fund.
And that's because we made a policy decision to do that. If we don't renew that policy decision, then I suspect all 5% would revert to the cable.
That's
okay, but
correct.
what I'm missing somewhere is, what is paying the salaries and benefits?
The part that goes to the cable fund.
The part that goes to the cable
Franchise
fund.
fees, yeah.
And that's 1.5%?
That's 3.5.
That's the 3.5?
That's a
Less 28
3.5.
grand.
Less 28 grand, okay. All
The
right.
20,
now-
I don't want
all
to
right.
complicate, but 28 is segregated for equipment, so, but.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that
That's why
leaves-
I was excited, because it's self-funded.
Okay.
See where I'm going now?
Yeah, I do. Would you like to?
If it came out of the
Go for
taxpayers'
it.
dollars, I'd be going crazy, but.
And forgive me, I like simple math, so bear with me. We have $388,000 that come in some way, shape, or form for cable. You back out even 104, that gives you what, 284? You have 265,000 in your budget? What am I missing? We're ahead of the game by 19.
The 265 includes 2 positions, not 3.
But you have listed here 3, I believe. In your budget, you have the assistant cable director.
There are, that's why I keep getting it.
Do you have the cable director?
Just
and-
as a reminder, like Sue said a couple hours ago, the descriptions in the budget align with the department request. Okay, so if you look at the description in the bottom line, that number should match the department line request, not my recommendation.
Oh, so the 111 versus the 157 is what you're talking about.
There you go.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Forgive me. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Chairman?
So I just had something just hit me. Okay, so the argument that you present, okay?
Yep.
So you're saying because it's self-funded and it shouldn't have to hit the taxpayer, right? Or it should just hit the cable, the people that have cable. I have cable, okay? So if I choose to let this money that the town is using to pay for other things to go into the general fund, that just means I'm paying less in taxes.
That's right.
Okay? Because if I choose not to do that, and then Dave says, okay, well, we need to fund it from somewhere, then I'm gonna pay higher taxes there. So it's either I'm gonna pay here, or I'm gonna pay there.
Right, so you're paying the cable bill, and you're actually paying part of your franchise fees with the intent that that will support the cable. So what we're trying to say is that particular, that particular person right now is helping to provide cable in Londonderry.
No, but that's not the problem is this. State law gives towns a choice. You can either put it, you could put it in a special fund, or you can just put it in the general fund. Londonderry chooses to put it in the special fund, but it doesn't have to do that. It could put it all in the general fund, just like they put dog registration fees in the general fund. So, that we carved out an exception doesn't mean we can't touch it.
It's all about policy. We're talking
Right.
about that the whole time, right?
Yeah, but
Tom?
Yeah, I think we have a few inflection points in this budget. We have the potential addition through a warrant article of additional headcount for the fire department. That's one. We haven't really talked about that much because it's not in the operating budget, it's a warrant article. The other one, I think Tom brought up, and that is the bonding of continued road maintenance. That will be, I think, we should entertain more discussion around that.
Sure.
And I think this maybe represents a third one. So my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is that since we are so early in the process, this is a pretty dramatic change from what was presented, that we think about it. And we come back and discuss it after we've had a chance to think about it. I think that this is way too early in the process here to make some final decision about this. Let's see how the other departments and the rest of things unfold, and let's come back and visit this. And maybe we want to entertain some more public comment on this as well. 'Cause
I'm sure we will.
We'll go through that. But we're still at the workshop level. This is a proposal. Let's consider it.
So,
Well put.
the first time we were made aware, just so you, for clarification purposes, and things to think about going forward, January 17th, 2011, the town manager made us aware of Dottie Grover's pending retirement in the next year.
When was that?
That's in the minutes.
No,
Unless the
it's-
minute,
when was that?
unless, January 11th,
11?
January 17th, 2011. Okay, I'm looking for additional comments, but that's the first time, it says here. Actually, excuse me, it was not the town manager, it was Pauline Karen said next year with Dottie Grover's retirement, it will leave only one employee in the cable training coordinator's position if eliminated. Now, I don't know if Pauline was the first one to tell us or not, but it's the first time I found a comment. I'm not blaming you, Pauline. I'm just saying it's the first comment I found.
Right in the audience.
Oh, wait a minute, hold. Town manager Karen said it was a one-time cost transition combining the dispatch. Now, he's talking about dispatch
Now, that's
centers.
town manager Dave Karen, not Pauline Karen.
I think, I'm saying it says here P, it says P Karen. So it must be, we must have approved the minutes with a typo in it, because it was Dave talking, yet Pauline told us.
Okay, so granted, I understand that we're, maybe jumping on the first day here, but really, let's again, I try to bring it back to the very plain, black and white thing, is that we're talking about $40,000 out of a fund that's already coming out of, the cable franchise fees for one more year at the worst scenario. And we're just asking to keep things, the way they are, I guess, for 1 year. I guess that's what it comes down to, and as somebody said a few minutes ago, we also have to talk about other larger numbers,
Much larger.
that are.
So for history purposes,
Yeah.
January 3rd and January 3rd mostly, most of the comments you're bringing out, Joe,
Yep.
are all in the minutes of what was discussed last year about money moving and what does it mean. It sounded familiar, so it was the same conversation that took place last year, so if you're interested.
Well, I have to read the minutes because I wasn't a council.
Yeah, I'm just saying, January 3rd, if you're interested in seeing what was said.
I wasn't a council then, so, yep,
Well,
I will, thank you.
Okay, let's finish up.
Well, on one more page, and just a statement, okay? I'm not.
Better not be
I'm
against
trying-
this 40
I
grand.
am not trying to start a war.
I don't know, but it's all Pauline's fault now.
But one, I think from my perspective, I have the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's my obligation, having been doing this in this position for so many years and having the experience. And so I'm trying to do my obligation and let you know what can happen, depending on what you decide. And if the special revenue fund, if withdrawals continue to happen, then they will not be able to support, the funds that are left will not be able to support this in an ongoing manner. Things would have to be severely changed, okay? And the kinds of things that people have had for the past 8 years since Drew started would have to be cut as well. So I'm not saying, I'm not gonna, stick the knife in my chest if you say no. I just want you to know that the program would have to be cut back. There would have to be things that don't happen. We have been in a cycle of reprioritization for the last 5 or 6 years. And my reprioritization piles are about this high. Okay, it doesn't mean that they don't need to be done, they do. But my priorities have to be done first. And that's just an example from my perspective. Any questions that you have, I would be more than happy to answer. I can get the information for you. I can get you whatever you want from other places if that's interesting to you. And we do have a lot of backup information that we gave you last year, and it's just the same. It's really just kind of, reviewing what you decided to do last year, and with the information that supports that. So, thank you, and I am
Thank you.
very sorry that things got a little volatile there.
Nah,
I don't like
that's
that.
what
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, bringing it back to Dave and Sue. You guys are on deck with the Recreation Department? That's why I get paid the big bucks.
Oh, hello.
Recreation Division located on page 106 of your books. The fiscal year 13 budget request, $139,000. There's an increase in part-time salaries and related mandatory benefits. There's an increase in the water expenses, a decrease in the general expense, and an increase in the maintenance and repairs. So the overall increase for this budget is $4,687.
Any questions for Sue in regards to recreation? I see none. Next.
Senior Affairs. There's a growing number of seniors in the community, so Department Director submitted a budget that is pretty flat. We'll get to that page, but she wanted the council to see some information regarding the growing segment of the population, some census information for you to take a look at.
Wow.
Current program, seniors have access to the hours, which are Monday through Friday from 8 to 2, and some Rockingham Meals on Wheels, which is 3 days a week.
Huge.
They have different programs such as bone builders, some senior fitness chair exercises, line dancing, etc. They have a lot of speakers that come in, such as doctors and lawyers, pharmacists, and fire department personnel. Program seniors have access to health and wellness clinics. They do some foot clinics, as well as diabetes support groups. They do some Medicare D, Part D assistance and enrollment forms, and they have someone come in to help them out with that. And they also have monthly special programs. They do a barbecue and some Christmas programs, Thanksgiving dinner, which is hosted by the fire department. They do some fundraising, which provides some money for them. This year it was $5,613. Bought them a Wii, because the Wii is pretty popular at the senior center.
Gets pretty competitive, I bet.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Total amount donated by Londonderry seniors to date is $44,000, which is really impressive. Great job for them. They also run the volunteers run several programs, some bingo and chair dancing and all, computer labs, that sort of thing. They have about 60 hours of volunteer hours, which is, would equate to $24,000. So that money is saved from the town if they don't have volunteers. These are all the vendors that they have connections with for the seniors. Fiscal year 13 budget, total budget for the program and office supplies, $8,910 for the program and $1,160 for the general expenses. Recommendation by the Senior Affairs Director is to continue expanding programs. She would look to have a part-time administrative assistant in there. That's not included in the town manager's budget at this time. She does have somebody from Able Network, provides 10 hours a week to do some reception work. Minimal staffing resources. It's a growing population, but she does have somebody there for 10 hours a week through Able. Her long-term goals, she has some bathrooms that need to be replaced or expanded on. And still looks at expansion of the senior center. Any
Plenty
questions?
of room now.
Hmm?
Plenty of room now.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions about the senior center?
No.
From the Elderly Affairs Committee, there are two big issues where, that the bathroom facilities are inadequate. And, that's really number one. And probably number 3, 4, and 5. And then the other big issue for them, as we stated earlier, was the pets during any type of opening of the storms or anything for the facility.
Let's not also forget that this is not just an aging demographic issue. The town, through its wisdom, has made policies over the past decade or so to encourage the development of more senior housing in the community. This is not, where we are today is not by accident or by virtue of an aging demographic. It's also by encouragement of the mix of the type of people we have living in our community.
By the way, I just heard that they did not get considered for the funding for the grant for senior housing that they were just denied.
So we're still back at the same point we were every other time.
We've made no further progress.
So we have land, but nobody to build it.
I don't even think, I think the whole, yeah, the whole land piece has changed as well.
Did it?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Last is Leach Library, and I'll turn it over to the library director.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just if I can let Pauline know. Pauline, so I'm reading this, and it was Dave talking, but you had spoken right before it. And then it says, P. Karen says. So we just needed some levity at that point. So thanks for,
Yeah, it's okay. I know I speak up a lot, but.
It was just really funny to see that it was you saying it.
Hi, my name is Barbara Ostertag, Wolfhampton. I'm the Leach Library Director, and I'm here to review the library board budget. And with me today is Pauline Karen. She's the library board treasurer. And I'm pleased to inform you that the library had yet another productive and successful year. We checked out 341,274 items, which was an increase of 1.34%. We answered 21,366 reference transactions, which was an increase of 0.74%. We had 1,796 interlibrary loan requests, which was an increase of 5.4%. We had 217 children's programs over the last fiscal year with 12,470 participants, which was an increase of 3.9%. We had 16 young adult programs with 571 participants, which was an increase of 14.20%. We had 10 adult programs with 516 participants, which was an increase of 11.93%. And our summer reading program for children and young adults, we had 1,725 participants, and they read 35,057 books. So it's quite amazing. That's an increase of 11.68%. And we had, in our adult summer reading program, if you remember, we started that last year, so this is our second year. We had 408 adults participate, and they read 2,052 books. And the internet computers were used 9,758 times. So just sort of some numbers to give you an idea of what we're doing over there. The library budget had some reductions from what was proposed. I'd like to review those briefly. The town manager reduced 22,100 from part-time salaries, 1,782 from general supplies, and 30,000 from books and materials, which brings the overall budget right now to $1,305,016, which is $10,360 lower than the default budget. So I guess that's it for me for right now.
Go ahead, Joe.
So, I guess the elephant in the room would be the part-time salaries. You're at 205 on the amended budget for 2011, actual is 184, and you're asking for 316. So obviously a gigantic increase, just wanted to know what that was about.
Yes, basically, what we did, remember this fiscal year, we took a pretty large decrease in the library budget than what was requested. We did reduce hours, and what we actually did was we eliminated 2 full-time positions in the library. We used to have 10 full-time positions. Now we have 8, and instead we increased part-time staff.
So basically, we wouldn't have to pay for health insurance, life insurance, dental insurance, retirement, et cetera. So that's why it looks like we've had such a large increase in part-time. But if you notice, we also had a decrease in the full-time salaries.
Okay, but I'm seeing, okay, so walk me through this then, because I'm seeing 556,000 on regular full-time salaries, of which 506 you're asking for, so that's only a $50,000 savings, yet we're over $130,000 increase in part-time.
Yeah, what you're doing basically is you're looking at the budget.
Yeah.
What you need to do is you need to look at what the default budget would have been had we not changed any positions, so you could compare those. For instance, if we had not eliminated the 2 full-time positions, our default budget in full-time would have been $579,455. That's our default. So you have to look at it that way.
With all due respect, the default budget's a bottom line number for the town. It's not by individual department.
No, but when you start comparing what we've done, so you actually look at the numbers to understand them. If you go with the budget, we've eliminated different positions. It gives you sort of erroneous dollar position of what we've saved in each line item, because you're not really comparing the same thing of what we would have. For instance, I don't know how to explain it any easier. Basically,
You could provide all the detail, and then we could see it.
No, I'm just, I guess as a real high level, I mean, just as a summary, I mean, I'm looking at 2011, and I understand what you just said, two full-time positions, so let me, I'll tell you what's going on up here.
Sure.
You have, I'm just rounding off, 200, so $750,000 from 2011 between part-time and full-time salaries. Then you have another 100 that you're asking for, another 100-something thousand on top of that. So obviously, you're trying to budget those 2 full-time positions again, right?
No.
How do you go, okay, I
Oh,
guess I'm lost.
do you
How
want me
go
to go through the numbers,
Yeah.
if I can?
Yeah, I'm just looking at those
Okay.
two line items,
If-
41,
This
10,
is
and
if
41,
we
12.
had not, okay, if we had not changed the full-time and the part-time at all, and I'll explain to you exactly what we did with part-time too. If we had not changed and eliminated 2 full-time positions, the salary line item in there would be $579,455. Okay, our health insurance, instead of it being $118,248, would have been $146,347. Our life insurance would have been $542 as opposed to $8,158. Our dental insurance would have been $11,234 instead of $9,430. Our retirement in that line item would have been $50,992 instead of $44,611. So what we did is by eliminating those 2 full-time positions, it's a total of $110,185, okay? And had we left the part-time positions at the 10 instead of the 12, it would have been $2,002,541, okay? What we did is we added 2 part-time positions, okay? And this is for $91,897 with an on-call custodian of 5 hours a week, so that's $5,200. We filled those 2 part-time positions at a library technician as opposed to a library assistant, so we have more flexibility because we're going to have more staff in scheduling. And we promoted 2 individuals from library assistants to library technicians. And then the other thing we did, which you're looking at, which is what Dave cut out, is we were hoping to get back we lost 8 operating hours this fiscal year. So we were hoping to get back 4 of those. We thought it wasn't realistic to ask for them all back, but we would try to get 4 of them back, and we would do that by increasing part-time employees' hours, and that's approximately, it's actually $20,760. So that's what you have in there.
Okay.
Just
Any
see,
other questions?
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No, I just see a large increase still, and I'm not sure, Dave, you said on that line item, you said it was 294 was okay with you, and is that because of what you just talked about, the two part-time versus the two full-time?
No, it was reduced to the nominal increase regarding any other department budget for personnel, because what you see is what I received from the library division.
Right.
So I didn't have benefit of what their long-term plan was. When I sent my instructions to the departments, I said, everything's the same from FY12.
Yep.
The council wants to see what your needs really are. Any deltas, please specifically identify them. Unfortunately, I didn't receive that from the library, so I had to presume that they want to maintain a regular operating. So I just looked at I looked at the increase in a typical town department regarding their increases for personnel, and I applied that increase to the library's personnel. I simply took it out of one line item to make it easier at this stage of the game, instead of having Sue go down and change benefits and everything. And I just put it on one line item, and so once the council makes its recommendation, we can allocate any adjustments among the benefits as appropriate.
I mean, you can, and that's fine, that's what you did, but all I'm saying is, you can put it on any line you want, but the point is, at the bottom line, it's still a giant increase. I mean, am I looking at the wrong number? I mean, 12,68,791.20 in 2011, and the proposed budget of 1,358,898.
It's a
305, you're looking at the wrong number.
It's a 3% increase. My recommendation is a 3% increase for the library.
Okay.
And that's actually, yeah, it's 40,470, and the default budget would be an increase of 50,830. So it's actually 10,000 less than the default budget.
Again, the default budget is a bottom line for the town. Unless you can provide detailed information so that we can go through and look at this, my vote is going to be to give you the same budget as last year. If you would like to provide me detailed information, I'll be happy to review it.
I did submit, every year, I submit a list of exactly what goes into the personnel department, in terms of personnel to the finance department, so they can do the benefits every year. I submitted that. I do that every year. So in terms of not having detail, every year it's in there, exactly who's in there, what their position is, how many hours they work, when they get their raise, etc. So
Okay, so the town manager,
that is not true.
you can take all the exception you want with it that you
It's
want,
not
but the
true.
town manager just said he didn't get it.
Well, I
Okay, so
submitted
if
to
he
the
didn't get
finance
it,
department.
we didn't get it.
Well,
I mean, so just provide it for us so that we can fairly assess your budget and give you what you want or not want. But what you're giving us is, the numbers you're giving me aren't adding up. So if you would just indulge us and give us the numbers that we need, that would be very helpful.
I don't know what else to give you. That's the exact numbers. We actually, well, I'm going to say this. Every year you go and you say, personnel is killing us, benefits are killing us. This year, we eliminated 2 full-time positions so we could eliminate benefits. We increased our part-time line items, and now there's an issue with that. I just don't understand the logic. I thought you'd be happy.
generally-
We got rid of 2 full-time people.
I'd appreciate it if you could take your tone down a little bit to us, Dave?
Yeah, we did receive a list of employees. That doesn't tell me how they're going to be deployed. If I can suggest to move the process forward, which would at least would help me, was to give an analysis of how you deployed your current personnel with respect to hours and positions, and what your plan is for FY13. With that information, they can give a good idea of how the resources will be deployed in a new way, and any impacts, either positive or benefit on services. That would be
I mean,
helpful.
so a funny thing is you're telling us, you're lecturing us about how you cut this and cut that, and you get rid of 2 FTEs, but yet you're asking for 100,000 more than you did last year. So that kind of doesn't add up if you sit up here.
Because we were hoping to get our hours back, 4 of the hours for the public. That was part of it. And the other part is we'd like to get back to what we had in the materials.
Well, you overspent on that line anyway. You overspent by $13,000.
Yeah, we do. We actually do. Whenever we can save any money, that's where we put it, back to materials, because like I've been saying for years, we've been trying to bring the collections up to, an adequate level for the public. That's what the public wants, and that's what we give them. We also did, Dave asked for each department to give back a percentage of their budget. We did do that. We gave back $35,000 actually more than the 2% requested.
So I had a question for you, Barbara. I usually go through all the meeting minutes of all the boards, one of my hobbies. On November 2nd, there was a non-public meeting, and the trustees, what appeared to be an overclassification award to you. What is that?
That's the same thing that, that all the department heads get. If you're at your top of your salary, you're eligible for a one-time lump sum overclassification award. It's not something the library board came up with. It's something that was in the town non-represented policy. That's also in the department head contract. That's not unique to the library.
So is that a merit review over max?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Any other department head get a merit review over the max?
Yeah, they all do.
They all do.
But I didn't ever know what overclassification is, but it's a merit over max.
Yes.
Okay, I understand now.
Well, overclassification sounds better. It doesn't say bonus. What?
In the salary line, Barbara, I see a reduction. You say you pulled 2 full-time employees out. And in that line item, there's a net reduction of $35,000 in salaries. But in the part-time salaries, there's a net increase of $125,000. So we reduced full-time by $35,000. We're not talking benefits here, this is just straight salary. So we reduced full-time by $35,000, increased part-time by $125,000. It almost seems like it would have been better to keep the full-time.
No, because if you look at all your insurances, then you can see what you've saved in each one of those line items. If you look at your health insurance, your retirement, all those, you'll see you got 11% down in your health insurance, 14%, 12%, and you also have to remember those are, if you look at all the other departments, those are being increased too. The percentage, the health insurance that we just went over a little while ago.
Councilor Dolan, that was what I was talking about earlier, it was just, that didn't add up to me on those 4110 and 4120.
Even with her explanation, it still doesn't add up. You're absolutely
Okay,
correct.
So, can we move on to another question?
That's
Any more
fine,
questions?
unless the council,
Do you mind-
Todd did have a question.
Been waiting patiently.
Yeah.
Changing the subject here, we have quite the investment in the town library here. And recently, we have the roof issue. I believe last year there was an HVAC issue, if I remember correctly. Are we doing anything, how do we reserve to make sure that we protect our investment in that structure over there?
Well, we try to allocate about $18,000 a year from the town expendable maintenance trust fund
Oh, okay.
for general repairs, and we paid for the roof, which was a lot more than $18,000 out of the same fund. It was
Okay.
like 42 or 45,000.
But we are reserving, and
Yes.
an allocation of that reserve is
Right.
specific to make sure we protect that.
That's correct.
Yeah, the capital reserve, it's all the buildings for the town are
Expendable
covered in
maintenance trust fund.
Thank you.
trust fund.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe?
Late fees for books overdue.
Mhm.
Where does that go?
That goes into the book account. And I gave you a couple months ago the breakdown, the annual report that has a detailed listing. Looked like this. It went to the town council that has the breakdown of exactly what we took in for fines, interest, book account, copies, discs, everything,
Okay, I have
and
that.
the balancing
Thank
of
you.
that. You're welcome.
Take it. Make a copy and send it to me.
Just keep it.
Barbara, recently we passed a resolution asking for what the digital outlook is for the library and what your long-term plans are. Do you think we'll be seeing that anytime soon?
Would you like to look at it right now? I have something I could give you. and
Actually,
we
it's a
could
budget
discuss it.
meeting right now, but do you think you'd be coming in to do a presentation for us to tell us what your
I was
long-term outlook
told-
is?
I emailed the town manager and I was told to do it as part of my budget presentation.
Well, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. I mean, as one counselor, I think I'd like to see it as a separate line item in another meeting so that we could be more productive.
As an agenda item on a regular council meeting?
It's
Yeah,
very,
that'd be
it's
great.
very quick.
It's your call.
Well, no, I agree with Councilor Farrell.
Okay, that's fine. We'll take it up at another time. Dave, if you could put that into our agenda schedule
I will.
sometime in the next month?
I will.
Okay. Any other questions for the library?
Yeah, before moving forward, I mean, she's asking for a 7% increase. I'd like to see some more detail than what we're getting here. I mean, it's nice to have everything read to you, but I'd like to see it in budget format in detail.
That's something we can get? I haven't heard her answer, so I want to make sure she acknowledges. Barbara, is that something we can get? More detailed?
I think they're just questioning where's the 7% coming from.
I'm not sure where the 7% is coming from in terms of, we're talking about the 3.2% from
I don't
Dave,
understand the
so.
confusion. Do you have 110 on your budget? Do you have this page, 110? Do they have the page 110? I mean, I can read it to you.
The library budget in your book?
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah, on the book.
Yeah, I
I mean,
have it.
it basically states, if you
right
look at the
there.
last page.
It's right behind you, Joe. It's on the screen.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
No, not even that. I wanted to. put
Oh,
the
okay.
detail,
You're
but-
talking the budget book, all right.
Yeah, I'm talking budget book. Okay,
Yeah.
so the bottom, from left to right, 2011 amended budget is 1,304, 1,304. Then 2011 actual, this is what I keep repeating all the time, is 1,268. Then it goes to 212 amended budget, which is what we were working off of, was 1,264,000. You were asking for 1,358,000. That's the significant increase I was talking about. I realize you said between the town manager's budget and your budget was the 4 operating hours. I made a notation about that. Like, I think to Council Farrell's point, what I'd like to see, in order for me to make an educated decision, is why you go from 1,264,546, and what are you asking for 1,358,898 detail? That's it, simple.
And if you don't know what the 7% increase is, then I haven't got 7%.
Mr. Chairman? Barbara, on your list, if you could, we talked earlier about the salary delta, with the dropping the 2 full-time heads and adding the part-time heads, and the 35K versus the 125K, and you mentioned that it was the difference was the savings in benefits. As I look at least what we have to look at, I see a savings in benefits of 34,000. So a salary savings of 35, a benefit savings of 34, for a total of 69,000, and an increase in part-time salaries of 125,000. And that, I think that needs to be reconciled. So if, next time we discuss this, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to delve into that a little more deeply.
Okay. So is that something you can get to Dave, so we can review it? Barbara,
Yes,
is that something that you can get to Dave so we can review it?
yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none?
Can I make a statement? before-
Sure, absolutely, make a statement.
Okay. We had this last big snowstorm. Did you notice how many people were using the library? Did any of you go in there to see? They had all the chairs
So we're basing the budget
occupied.
on a one snowstorm?
I was there.
No, they had all the chairs occupied. They were all over the floor using their,
And for that reason, I went over to the shelter and went to the town manager and said, can we please see about enabling the internet at the shelter, because it would take some relief off of you.
because it was full. It really was.
I agree with you,
People
Paul.
were glad that the library had power.
Me too.
And I came over here today, not at the beginning of your meeting, but when I came over, it was about, 1:30 or so. The parking lot was full, and it was of people using the library because they know they're closing at 2 o'clock. And we changed hours on Fridays and Saturdays from 10 to 2, instead of closing one full day and having the other days open, to accommodate the people that work out of town, so we have Saturday hours as well as Friday hours. And Barbara has been very good in cross-training all her employees. So if somebody's out sick, or if somebody's missing, that job is not left for whoever comes in the next time. It's taken care of during the day. And that's one of the things that she's been very good at, and she's good at saving money. And some of you should probably come to our trustee meetings. Our liaison hasn't been coming at all.
So one thing I will say to you, Pauline, is that David's the assistant, one of the assistant directors? Or
David?
David?
No, he's not. He's a reference librarian.
He's excellent. I have a lot of interaction with him, my family does and everything. The ladies at the desk are great. I mean, you know, I have never had a negative experience in the library.
That's good, I'm glad.
My problem is, and I'll be very candid about it, you want $100,000, it's got to go into the bank. It's like if I went to the bank and told them I want $100,000, I got to bring them a lot of detail, just asking for the same thing. You know, I think the library is one of the, you know, and this guy David is one of the great hidden resources of this town. And I think you guys provide a great service.
Thank you.
But $100,000 is $100,000. That's a firefighter or a cop. That's
Okay.
how I got to look at it.
I'm looking up at what's up on the screen. I don't know where the 1,358 comes from, because I don't have that figure at all.
That was Barbara's budget proposal. And the town managers is the lower one, the 1.30. Right.
Barbara, do you not recognize that number, the 1.3?
Yes, I do recognize that
Oh,
number.
okay, sorry. I didn't recognize it.
That's your requested number.
Correct.
I think that the point is the
And the other number's the Grinch's number.
Oh, okay, now I get it.
Thanks, Bob.
Not embarrassing.
From the Budget Committee
Paper's gone.
perspective, excuse me, from the Budget Committee perspective, I know we would like to see the detail. To Councilor Farrell's point is, I'm not necessarily against or one way or the other. I just need to understand it, just like lay it out exactly what's what, give the detail, provide the justification in terms of dollars, in that sort of thing. It'll go a long ways to help your cause, just so that we can understand it better.
And honestly, Barbara, you know, the scrutiny you're getting is no different from the scrutiny everybody else is going to be getting. It's all in having the information. In all honesty, I know the library provides a good service. That's never been an issue. It's just we have to justify everything. And, you know, as far as like Pauline saying you do a good job cutting and saving, and hey,
She does.
I get it too. I do it too. You know what I mean? Everybody here that works for a living does that. She's paid to do that. We all are. We provide a service, and my check, when I report my hours to my employer, 40 hours a week, I'm providing a service, and I damn well better give them that service. So it's not about justifying if she's doing a good job or not. It's just, we need some detail, that's all.
And one more thing, Mr. Chairman. Ladies, you probably weren't here earlier when we were talking about the default budget and about the deliberative session. The reason I'm on this whole default thing is that we have approximately an increase on the default of 2.6%, all right? So we're going to be challenged to get either below that or right near it, because the voters are going to get to decide. We can't go by a default budget by department. We have to come in, we have to understand what the voters are going to do and what's going to happen at the deliberative session. And this is new to us, too. So that's why we can't look at it from a department level, because then we'd probably wind up with a 10% increase. And we just can't. And we're learning about this, too. And believe me, I think you guys provide a great service. My kids love it there. I mean, you know, I have nothing negative to say about the library.
And the bottom line, Pauline, is as a taxpayer, as I know you are, because you're always there to challenge us on decisions. If we go in, and, you know, I'm right there with you. I've been the same way for all the years I've been sitting here and as a budget committee member. I've always tried to be cognizant of that. But the bottom line is the way the system's changed now. The voters, they might just go in and get that default budget, and then Dave's basically gonna have to sit there and say, okay, I have a default budget now. Where am I gonna take it from? So it's gonna be a matter of the town manager's gonna have his instructions from the voters that don't support that the higher budget. You're gonna be left with the default, and then he's gonna have to figure out where to cut it. So that's why we're trying to, you know, make sure that we have all the facts. We'll present everything, and believe me, this is the first foray into it. We're gonna have to go through it, adjust it. What do you need? What do you really need? And ask all those questions of every department, the police, the fire, and everybody else.
Well, I'll be back to budget hearings.
I know you will.
I'm going away for a week, so you won't see me.
Gotta get those hearings in quick.
But I have questions.
Of course you do.
I already have questions. I watched from this morning at 8 o'clock.
Can you find that when Dottie's retired?
It's not for.
No, from 8 o'clock this morning, I watched.
Hey, so Pauline, so you know, we have to be done before January, so don't go
I
way
know.
too long.
I'm only gonna be gone 8 days.
Okay.
So,
I know.
Reschedule time.
so, anyway, okay. So, are we good? You're gonna get that info and we'll move forward from there?
Thank you.
He wants to shoot.
you.
He left to shoot? Yeah.
Just not going to acknowledge.
Todd, did we figure out with the council and the school board yet as far as December 1st? Since both boards are scheduled to meet the same night?
No, in fact, I was going to talk with the school board.
Lisa and I were curious. Okay.
Because the schedule was set initially and put out there by the town first, and they were supposed to accommodate to that, so,
Okay.
the way I understood. So I need to speak with the school board on that and find out how we're gonna reschedule.
Hey, we got one more slide left before we can adjourn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sue?
One more slide. There's one more slide.
We had one more slide up there before we can break free. It was on the, I can't just go away. I mean, you know, we got that one slide.
Family mediation. The department was eliminated in fiscal year 12 due to the budget directives.
Are there any questions for Sue?
So will there be an increase in that department?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Oh, wait, I can't second. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There better not be any opposition.